Asexuality, all things asexual. I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that great big subscribe button right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live like now or post a new video. So I am on my iPad. I'm at a slight angle as well because my Mac and phone is busy transferring files to each other. So yes, here I am. So today's video is all about things you need to know about long distance relationships. So for many asexuals, a lot of the time a relationship will start online, because a lot of the time asexuals that are compatible are not usually in the same country or the same city or the same town or the same countryside. So a lot of the time you're going to have to move to be with another asexual person if you want to be with an asexual person, compatible asexual person, right? So if it's a case that going down along the lines, you feel that after a while you don't want to be on your own anymore, you do want to be in a serious committed relationship with someone, you realise that it's really difficult to find an asexual person who lives near you. And if they do live near you, then they're not necessarily going to be compatible and have the same needs, wants, likes and desires as you, right? It's very difficult to find an asexual that's got the same needs as you in the same vicinity, right? I'm not saying it never happens, but it's very, very rare. And so this means a lot of asexuals will actually find love and a relationship online, right? So many asexuals will find either their asexual partner online, or they'll find them at an asexual meetup, for example. So if in your country they have asexual meetups, you might have to travel to meetups. That's something you need to do. And if you're not prepared to travel whatsoever to find another asexual, then you're going to have a problem, because you're either going to have to pick a sexual person to be with you, or you're going to have to be single, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with being single forever if that's what makes you truly happy. But you've got to think in your heart of hearts, in your desires, do you want to be single for absolutely ever, for the rest of your life, and die as a single person? If the answer is yes, then great. You don't need a relationship at all. So you don't even need a long distance relationship. But if you do want a relationship of some sort, then, usually many asexuals will start the relationship online, and it will often be long distance. Now, there's different variations to this. A long distance could be a long distance within the same country, or it could be long distance as in countries away from each other. Now, if it's countries away from each other, there's a lot of problems with this type of relationship. So one being that, the distance is huge. And although when you first get together, there might be a lot of chemistry online, you might have that connection with the person. They really understand you. You feel comfortable around each other. You feel romance towards each other. You think about kissing the other person, holding their hand, being with them. Although you might have all that attraction going on and it might feel so good and so right, unless one of you is prepared to move to the other, it's not going to work in the long term for years and years and years and years and years and years to come. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to do long distance forever, or I've not met anyone yet who is actually happy doing long distance forever. There might be some people out there that tell me wrong. There might be a few. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong about that. But in the main, most people are not going to be happy with a long distance relationship forever. And that's because it gets very upsetting. If you're doing a long distance with someone in another country and you're not seeing them at all in person, you're going to have this need to cuddle them, to just hug them, to be there in person through their tough times. Maybe to kiss and hold their hand, right? You can't get that through a screen. Physical touch. Sometimes that's one of a person's love language, is physical affection. Physical touch. It doesn't have to be sex or even sexual in nature, but they need that warmth. Even if it's just a cuddle, a lot of asexuals love cuddling. And you can't cuddle for a screen and feel that cuddle, right? It just, at the moment can't happen, right? And so it gets very upsetting. So you end up being in a relationship where you love each other dearly, but it ends up tearing you apart inside, not being together. And one of you has to make the move to go and move to the other person's country. But if you haven't discussed this in the beginning and how this is going to happen and who's going to do it, you might just be in a situation where you're in a relationship but no one's going to move to the other person. In which case the relationship is doomed if you don't want a forever long distance relationship. I know people that have spent 4 years of their life in long distance relationships and it's ended. It's ended because one goes, oh yeah, I want to move. Yeah, when the time's right. Oh, it's COVID now, so no one can move. Oh yes, I haven't got the money now, can't move. Oh, I need to get a job, can't move. I haven't got the money, can't move. I haven't got anything. And this might be very true, but this is reasons not to get into a long distance relationship, right? Unless you have the money in your bank and or the means of getting over to see the person at least several times a year, and you're planning on moving over really to be with them, normally within 12 to 18 months. That should really be, 12 to 18 months, a year to a year and a half should be the time span you're thinking about moving to be with the other person. If it starts getting any longer than that, there's a danger that you will just not do it. Right, and you'll keep putting it off and putting it off, so the time's not right. And a lot of the time, you don't take any action. You're saying, I want to move. You're saying, I'm going to move. But when have you been looking at properties near the person? When have you been looking to get a job near the person? When have you been looking at plane flights or train journeys if you live in the same country? Now, if you live in the same country, I would expect you to be travelling to see each other. This may require one person travelling more than the other, or both of you travelling equal. Might require someone staying over someone's home or staying in hotels. Now, if, for example, your partner's staying in a hotel, they're not staying in their home with you, that's going to get very expensive for them. And if it's a city that it's not easily able to get to by public transport and you don't drive, that's going to be another problem. For example, in the UK, I couldn't be with someone who lives in Manchester. Because for me to get from my city in Exeter to Manchester, I have about 2 hours time there with them in the whole city. That'll be it, and I have to go back again. When I was in Manchester years ago at Coronation Street Studios, if you're a UK soap opera fan, you know the soap opera Coronation Street. I went behind the scenes. I went to the studio, right, Granada Studios in Manchester. But I had to stay over in a hotel, and the hotel was ridiculously stupid. It was a 3-star, but basically you could see the door had been crowbarred before. The light was like hanging off. The bed was nearly collapsing. It was a real bad place. It was awful. No ensuite. Had to share a toilet with guys that looked like were on drugs. And yeah, this is supposed to be a 3-star hotel. I was not impressed. It was very scary, to be perfectly honest with you, even though at that time I was staying over with a boyfriend at the time, I was going to say it was equally scary, but there you go. Maybe in a different way. And, well, still not a good way. So yes, moving on from that. So what I'm saying is, you've really got to think about practicalities as well as your emotions when you're thinking about getting into a relationship with someone. A relationship is very beautiful and special. And I know asexuals who've moved to be with the other person or live near the other person or be in the same place as the other person, and it's worked out amazingly well and they've got the love of their life, right? So sometimes it's worth taking the risk. At the end of the day, if you don't take any risks in life, you don't get anywhere in your life. You just stay stuck. You stay stagnant. You just, you don't get the love of your life if you don't take action. Right? There'll be someone that will come along which will take action, right? I meet loads of guys online and go, oh yeah, when I've got the money, I'll come over there, Sandra. It's like, yeah, that's never going to happen because they don't take any action. They're all about, I'll get a job over here, their own country, before I come over there. And it's like, that's all very well, but, then you might take years to get a job over there. And unless you can actually come over here and afford to, then it's going to be no good, right? As much as I appreciate it. I've had loads of guys telling me they'll come over, but some of them don't even bother looking. You know, I'm having to do the work for them. That's what they want me to do, the work, and they're not bothering. If they're not bothering themselves, they're not really interested. A guy who's genuinely interested in being with me, he'll be like, right, okay, what do I need to do to get to the UK? What sort of job could I do over there? Let's go to the HMR, let's go to the UK website. Let's look through their 2,000 sponsors in the UK. It's going to take me hours because there's loads of pages. That means there's loads of opportunities. Let's go. Let's do this on a regular basis because I want to be with Sandra. I want to move to the UK, right? Next is, go in groups in the UK, work groups in the UK. Go on job sites, go on LinkedIn, right? This applies to like loads of countries. So I'm not just using mine as an example. If someone wants to move countries, they should be literally networking online. They should be finding out what jobs they can do, right? And they should be visiting you, right? Do not move to someone for a long distance relationship until you've visited them in person. One of you's got to visit the other one. Maybe you're working and got lots more money than the other person, and you can afford to go over there and, see the person, fly over, see them, spend a week with them, spend a month with them if you can, if they can get the time off work, or 2 weeks. You want the maximum amount of time you can possibly spend with them, because a relationship in reality, in person, is very different to one online. Online, you can just switch the button off if you don't want to talk to the person anymore. You can stop, speaking to them whenever you feel like it. When you're in person, there'll be times and days when you're together and you're in each other's faces and in each other's places, no doubt. And you're with each other 24/7 in those moments, right? I'm not saying it's healthy for you to be with someone 24/7. It's not, right? You need your own space and to do your own things. But in those moments, you might be spending a whole weekend with that person, right? So you're spending 48 hours or more with that person, 72 hours, right? That's a lot of time, right, to be in each other's faces. Whereas when you're online, you're not sleeping with them. Unless you fall asleep, you're still not physically sleeping next to them. You've got your own space. You can kind of say, oh, I've had enough now. I'm going off doing this, or I've got to go now, but in person, it's not like that. So you've got to understand it's very different in person to an online relationship, right? But there are people that make online, long distance relationships work, but there has to be a cut-off point. Because if there's no cut-off point, in my experience, one of them just gives up in the end because they realise that the other person isn't going to move. And I know this because I've seen it happen. I've seen guys going, I've even seen one guy who wasn't asexual years ago, Bangladesh he was, and he loved this woman, he said. For 4 years, he was over 4 years, he was in an online, long distance relationship. And then his mum married him to someone else, and he got divorced within a year from that other someone else, because it was an arranged marriage, because he didn't really want to be with the person that was arranged marriage, and it didn't work out. Right? I think he actually was too sexual for it, very interestingly. But, it just didn't work out. And that's 4 years of his life he basically gave up for this relationship. But if she really was the love of his life, which clearly she couldn't have been because little mummy decided to arrange him a marriage, then, that's a bit sarcastic, wasn't it? But you know what I mean? It's like, why get your parents to pick an arranged marriage for you when you're already in love with someone for 4 years? It's wasting your life and wasting the time of the person you're in love with. If your parents are going to arrange your marriage, don't get into a relationship with someone that you can't marry. It's unfair to the person. It's unfair to you, right? I've seen this happen. People get in long distance relationships. People who can't be with them because their parents wouldn't approve, their families wouldn't approve. And a lot of guys, I'm talking about guys that can be any gender, are not strong enough in that way. They're not strong enough to say, hey, look, I've been in this long distance relationship for 4 years now to a person. I know you might not approve, but it's someone I want to be with for the rest of my life, and I want to go to their country and marry them with or without your approval. Most guys who come from that sort of culture for arranged marriages will not do that type of thing. So please, as much as I love Indian guys, I don't want to be married, full stop. So for me, I've got even less people to select from if I want to be with an Indian guy, which I think my soulmate's Indian, right? I'm not saying I'm not attracted to anyone else, I don't have feelings for anyone else, but I've just ultimately always felt that my guy's Indian, right? And so yeah, long distance relationships have a lot of benefits in the sense that you've still got someone for you. to talk to you on a bad day. They can message you and stuff like that. But you have to understand it requires a lot more communication on a daily, ongoing basis. You need to be like in each other's lives, even if you're not there physically in person. So you might have had a really tiring day at the office. You might have worked 16-hour shift for some reason. And you come home, you're knackered, and you've only got 8 hours to play with. You've got your friends that haven't seen you for ages. You've got the love of your life wanting to speak to you via video chat, and you've not even ate food yet. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? There's times like these when you've got to choose and pick, right? And, when you're tired and stuff like that, a lot of the time in Texas can come through as though you're, be misconstrued as though that, you're not interested in the person anymore, or you're being abrupt with the person when really you just need sleep, right? So, long distance relationships require a lot more communication and more time, energy and effort, because you can't physically see the person in person. So you don't know what their body language is saying unless you see them on video chat. And it might mean that you're free for a video chat at a certain time that the other person isn't. You might be in completely different time zones. You might never not get to speak to each other much if you've got eight hours difference gap, And so this can get very, very hard and tired for both parties. It can get very, very difficult. And so, there can be a lot of heartache and heartbreak and pain if this continues. So you have to weigh up the pros and cons. If categorically you want to move to another country and you're dead sure about it, and you just know that you're going to move anyway, regardless of whether you find an asexual person or not, then you find an asexual person, then move to that asexual person, because you're going to move anyway. One of the most weirdest things I saw is one of the people who was in my asexual dating group, they're not anymore, that I know of. And yeah, they said they were leaving. That's right, some time ago, right? They were in this dating group, and they said they wanted to move, right? And this woman clearly loved him, and because of the words she wrote, right? And and he said he was unlovable and no one loved him and all the rest of it. And then when he had her under his nose saying, basically saying she'd like him to move there, and he said he was going to move, he was like, oh yeah, but if I move, it's not going to be there. And I thought, how bad is that, when you clearly get on really well with her, you clearly like her, but obviously not enough, right? And so, if you're already looking to move anyway, unless you've got a particular country in mind, you're dead set on a country, then move to the country where the person is that you love the most. It makes the most sense, right? There'll come a time in your life, if you really want to be in a relationship, if you want to experience asexual true love, where you'll just think to yourself, either I regret not even trying to move, or you'll just think, all right, well, love's not for me. But no, there is someone out there for everyone if you want there to be, right? People have to do different things in life. In order to get a different result in life, you have to change your circumstances or change yourself. So there was this guy in one of the asexual dating groups that's not my group, and they were saying, I've got no friends, I'm all alone, basically. And when I questioned them, I found out they were living with their family. And their family, they will always live with, basically. And so therefore, it's obvious why they don't have any friends or a girlfriend. I said to them, so because you live with your family, is that why you think, do you think that you don't have a relationship, a girlfriend or friends? And they're like, yeah, probably so. I'm introverted, but there's lots of asexual introverts that still have friends. My asexual friends are all introverted as far as I know, apart from one that I've known of, but they don't speak to me anymore. They only came to one meet up, so pretty much all the asexuals I know are introverted, and they still have friends. They still like to go out sometimes. Right, so I don't think that's an excuse. But the point is most people do not want to have someone, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, when they're still living at home with their parents when they're like 50 or whatever. Or do you know what I mean? It's just you need to get independence, right? If you make your family your life, that's it. They become your life, right? And, not many people, girlfriends or boyfriends, want to be going round to their partners who still live at home with their parents with no privacy and are basically married to their parents. It's like having a third party, right? It just isn't what most people want, especially if you're talking about a westernised country. I mean, I don't want to be... I know some of the guys that I like probably will still live with their parents because they're younger in their 20s, but I need to find a guy really who lives on his own, who's mature enough to live on his own, and who, you know, is capable of looking after himself, you know, and doesn't care what his parents think and choose his life for himself, you know. For me, like in Indian guys, it's going to be very difficult for me to find one that has more of an independent approach, and actually his parents are very like liberal and let him choose his own partner, even if she's older than him, right? So I've got a lot of stuff going on. But, you know, if you really want true asexual love, yes, you might find it online. You might have to do long distance for some time. But there's got to be a date where you're setting to meet the person. You know, you need to be booking holidays up in advance. I know it's very difficult with the pandemic at the moment, right? But don't use that as an excuse. Oh, I can't do it. Right? Get something that's a refundable ticket, for example. You know? So that you've got that in place, because you could be saying, oh, well, it's COVID now, it might be locked down today, it might be locked down in 2 weeks, it might be locked down in 6 months. I mean, I appreciate there's some countries that are pretty much locking down nearly all the time, you can't move, so, you know, that's different. But if you've got a country that's opened up and they're likely to be opened up, it looks like, for at least a few months, right? Or, you know, get on that plane, go to their country, especially if it's a kind of safe country anyway. I mean, I love the country I live in. I mean, specifically the city I live in. I'm very blessed at the fact that I've got really good healthcare in my city, when a lot of people in the UK are struggling to get there, to even see a doctor or go to hospital, right? In my city, so far, I've been very blessed like that, you know, that I'm able to access that in my hospitals and doctors, you know, although my doctors I talk to on the phone usually. But, you know, I feel really fortunate like that. You know, I've got supermarkets on my doorstep in my city. You know, they're not trying to check if you're vaccinated all the time. I live near the quayside, so I can walk there in fresh air whenever I want. And so, you know, I feel very, very, very fortunate and blessed, you know. Very fortunate and blessed where I live. Because I found a lot of other parts of the country are just, you know, like they've got a lot more spike in virus. And they've also got a lot, you know, they're being checked like to go into places like 3 times or something, you know. I mean, all I go into the supermarkets really when I have to, you know, and I go out and socialise a little bit, but most of the time I'm indoors anyway. But the quayside, you know, is really lots of fresh air, lots of, you know, the River X runs through it. There's loads of fields and stuff, so you can social distance fairly easily, right? So I feel really blessed. I live in my city. I think I'm a lot more fortunate than some people. And, you know, I think, you know, that someone who was in another country that maybe not so good access to healthcare, a lot of issues with like restrictions, I think they would really welcome actually being in my city if they could find a job and get a home and, you know, come and be here. I think they'd have a lot more freedom. I think they'd be really happy. They, you know, if it's a guy, well, it wouldn't be a woman. So, but I meant I was going to say if it's a guy who likes going to the gym, then there's like 2 gyms down my road. If it's a guy who likes going out in the open air, you know, he can cycle or run all the way around like the River X and go for long walks to loads of different places, you know. And so easy access to public transport, cinemas, all that, you know, on your doorstep, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I think when you're doing a long distance relationship, you really have to be researching your partner's place. You know, you should be doing all this early on, right, before deciding to get into a long distance relationship. You should be having this discussion, like, if we got into a long distance relationship, who would move to who, and how likely is that really to happen? I'm not talking about fantasy land where, oh God, yeah, I really want to move to see you, I love you, I'm feeling so romantic right now, I really want to kiss you, cuddle you, all that. It's great, those feelings. But if one person can't move towards the other, you're going to be doomed. You're going to really hurt each other and rip each other apart, because you're going to get to the stage where you really want to be with that person so badly, but you can't. And either you're going to resent each other, or you're just going to tear each other apart, right? Because you're going to be like, if one person says, oh, I can come over there, and then they can't change their mind, it can happen. People are entitled to change their mind. But that's a huge risk, you know? So you should be discussing all this beforehand. Discussing, you know, like, have you thought about moving? Like, who wants to move to who? Have you got the finances to actually do it? Because most of the guys I talk to, they don't have the finance to do it. I don't have the finance to move abroad, but I don't want to move abroad. I specifically pay for my own flat, pay for my own rent, you know, pay for my own food bills, pay for my own council tax, look after myself. I do not want to be paying out for someone else when I don't have the money to do that, right? And so, you know, some foreign guys, they think that they'll come over here and I'll support them. It's like, I've got to support myself. Do you have no idea what it's like to be on your own as a single person and spend years like paying your own rent, which is going up, and paying food and everything and looking after yourself. It takes a lot of time, energy and effort. I haven't got the money to go around paying for anyone else, right? And so, if a person is on good money where they are, they can save up to move, right? They can, it depends what job they're interested in as well, what job they can do, right? Because in the UK, for sponsored jobs, there's only certain professions where they really have a lot of sponsorship, such as the NHS, doctors and nurses. Marketing's quite popular in the UK as well. There's quite a lot of sponsorship for marketing jobs. So I think, the person who is thinking about travelling or moving to another country needs to really find out the location, the job situation, the accommodation situation, really needs to think carefully about moving if that's possible. I mean, maybe you've got two people and you're both willing to move one to the other and you have no problem doing that. You've both got the finances, in which case that's much more healthier to base a relationship on, like, is love and practicalities as well. You can't have a love relationship online forever. It just doesn't work. If you really truly love the person, you will urge to be with them. You will desperately want to touch them, to cuddle them, to kiss them, to be there for them for the difficult times. You'll really want to be there in person, and to not be will just break your heart, and you'll probably start arguing, or maybe not arguing but crying over it, and you both have to, console each other over over the internet, online, and it's just not a happy life in the end, right? So some people, they have long distance relationship and they do definitely make it work, right? And one moves to the other and they're so happy. And a lot of the time, especially if it's LGBT plus people, including asexuals, then, it's kind of like, oh my God, I've got the love of my life. It was really worth the risk. I'm glad I moved. I'm glad I did it because we're happy ever after now. And it really is like a true love story, and it doesn't come without its hardships, like hard times. But, it's just so much more easier when you have someone who understands you and gets you on a fundamental, foundational core level. So when you have two asexuals who love each other without sex, you can feel that pure love. You can feel that support and that mutual respect and that mutual caring, I do want to be in a relationship with an asexual guy. I don't really want a sexual guy. I want an asexual guy. It's really important to me, And I don't know how that's going to work out in the end, in years to come, right? Am I going to get my asexual guy? What's going to happen with that? I have thought myself about moving to London because I absolutely love London. It's my second home, but I've always said that I'm not a non-mover because I love living here. And when I've actually looked at it, the situation, not only is London completely out of my price range at the moment, it's got a lot of restrictions to do with COVID, a lot more stuff's going on there that's not good at the moment. And like I said, I've got a lot more benefits in my city. So really, the guy would be better to come to my city anyway, and for me to stay where I am. And I'm going to be staying for the foreseeable future and not moving because, because I know I'm a lot safer here. I've got a lot more freedom here. And, I can still commute to London. I would still like to go and visit London more, I still got that part of me wants to move there, but not all of me, and I am a lot safer here, and I know the area, I know the place. It's somewhere where I can feel and be myself. So that's very important, And so, I think a guy would be happy to move over here. So when you are a person and you want someone to move to you, you have to be thinking about the other person. Like, is the other person going to be happy moving to your area? What's in it for them, right? Are they going to get more freedom? Are they going to get, are they going to get to pursue their hobbies more? Because like I said, if a guy's into weightlifting, for example, which I'm not really into muscly guys at all, but I seem to be attracting more guys and got muscles lately. Probably because they're sexual. They're a lot on Facebook dating, whereas I really need an asexual guy. But, there's two gyms down the road from me. So one's a 24-hour one, so he'd have a field day, And so when I think about the quality of life of the guy, if he came to move to live near me, I think that his quality of life would be fantastic. Obviously, if he didn't have friends in the UK, that may be really difficult for him. But if he goes to uni, for example, in my city, he might make some friends at uni. He could join some meetup groups, join some hobby groups, Or he might be a guy that just is very introverted anyway, or an ambivert, where he does, you know, have a proportion of time he just wants to spend by himself and doesn't even want to be with someone else. He likes running or cycling, swimming, all that type of thing. You know, so, and obviously I'd introduce him to my friends. He could come to asexual meetups with me, as I run them anyway. And, you know, so he wouldn't be alone. I'd be spending as much time as I could, but I still want a life of my own as well. So, but he's probably going to be a guy that makes friends at work and stuff like that anyway. You know, if he's doing like an IT job, for example, he could go out with people from work and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, some people don't mind travelling, or they've travelled lots in their life and they do want to settle down with someone, but they're happy to travel and move, and they're used to making new friends and going to new places, and they're not attached to their family, they're not attached to their home, and they think, well, I've done a lot of travelling, single now, you know, I want to settle down, but I'm quite happy to go to another country because I'm used to moving around anyway. So that type of guy would probably suit coming to my country, one who wants to like kind of settle down now, but he's used to moving around quite a bit anyway. So, you know, it's not going to be a shock them coming to a new country and not knowing, you know, what to do, where to go, or how to be friends, because someone who's very well travelled anyway won't have that problem really. They'll be used to it, right? For someone who's not used to being independent but used to living at home with mum and dad and stuff like that, it's going to be very difficult for them to make the transition. The only way it might be possible is if they move directly in with you. Now, some people make this work, they move directly in with each other and it's great. Others, you know, you really need to be making sure, ideally, that you live separately in the beginning, in my personal opinion. And the reason for this is if you haven't seen each other much in terms of travelling to the other person's country, right, and you haven't met up much, you don't know how you're going to get on in a close-knit, ongoing dynamic like living together. So it's much better to live separately. Then if it doesn't work out, you've got your own place, they've got their own place, and it's one less thing to worry about if you do split up, right? Plus it makes you a lot more healthier, I think, when you live separately, because you don't have so much dependency on the other person, right? There's a danger that a person can move from their mum and dad's and then come into a relationship and live with you, and they be dependent like a mum or dad on, you know, like they treat you like you're their mum or dad, right? And they're dependent on you like that, where they haven't got their own independence, which is unhealthy, right? So you don't want an unhealthy attachment there. You want a healthy attachment where a person like is kind of like knowing they can live on their own, knowing they can be on their own. They might have gone back to their parents for a while because maybe their finances didn't work out, maybe something didn't work out in their life, but they've had a time on their own. They understand how to be on their own, right? So it's very important that a person does that, really, ideally, before getting into a relationship. Because I left home at the age of 19 and I moved straight in to live with a boyfriend after leaving college, and it was very difficult. It's very difficult to adjust, and it wasn't a healthy relationship for me. But by then I hadn't got anywhere else to go. I was financially stuck with the person, you know, because I got a part-time job at the time. I couldn't afford to live on my own, and so that's how abuse can happen, you know. And it's much better when you don't know the person to actually spend time in separate places, and then spend some time over each other's places if you can, if it's suitable, to actually get to know what it feels like living with someone without actually fully living with them. So you'll spend like a few nights over there, sort of a few days and nights, you know, with them, and then, you know, you can get a good idea of what it's like. But when I hear these people and they're like, oh, I've been in a relationship for like 3 or 4 years and I've never even visited the person, to me that's just complete alarm bells ringing. I'm like, well, if they're the love of your life, why haven't one of you saved up the money to go and visit the other person? You know, one of you should have already sorted that out in the beginning of the relationship, saying, yeah, that's me, I'll go, right? I won't go abroad because I don't fly on a plane, and I make that very clear to a guy when I first meet them. Right, so I'm like, you know, but I don't want a long distance relationship. I can't do long distance, right? The guy back in June who I thought was my Indian asexual soulmate, who turned out not to be, you know, that was the only time I've really given a long distance a little bit of a go, and unofficially, if you know what I mean. Stevie, oh, nice to see you. Lots of love. So yeah, back in June, the asexual Indian guy, that's the only time I've ever given a bit of a chance to someone who's, you know, who's not in the same country. And already there was issues there, you know, the issues to tell you a few of them. Well, one is the person said they were going to be moving. When they first met me, they said they were going to be moving anyway abroad to another country, and that one of those countries would be likely be the UK anyway, because they lived in London when they were studying, right? So that I thought was great, because they're already thinking about moving. Well, they told me they didn't want to stay there after their studies. They wanted to move. So that was already given that they were going to move. But they changed their mind. And they're like, oh, well, I've decided now that I've got my family and friends here and that, I want to stay here, basically, After they'd asked me for a long-distance relationship originally, and I'd said I can't do long-distance like that. If you're going to get into a long-distance relationship, I'd need to see you over here in person first, at least. But, I was talking to them. They asked me to do an unofficial long-distance relationship, unofficial, right? And I don't like that secret stuff anyway. Well, my friends is like, why would you do that, Sandra? Because it's not who you are. You don't do unofficial stuff, right? So I think, if you're going to have a long-distance relationship, you need to be putting on your Facebook, in a relationship, you need to be showing each other their families, your families, you introduce them to friends on the internet. You shouldn't be having a life like, completely separate, like you're not including that person or they're not including yours. There should be a stage where you get to where you're introducing family and friends over the internet by webcam, basically, because you need to be treating your relationship seriously. So again, it's red flags if a person is not introducing you. I mean, they don't have to straight away because it's early days, but certainly within 3 months they should have introduced you to their family and friends, or 6 months at the latest, and like I said in the beginning of this video, you really need to be setting a deadline for traveling, to definitely meet up with a person in person and to move. Most likely you should be moving in 18 months, 12 to 18 months. You shouldn't be lingering it, because people that linger, they just literally keep making excuses as to not move or why they can't move, and it doesn't happen, and then it leaves people heartbroken. So if you're going to get into a long distance relationship, know at the very beginning who's going to move to who, how they're going to do that. They need to be thinking how they're going to do that. I mean, some people who I talk to, they haven't even thought about what they want in a relationship, let alone moving to live near or with the other person, right? And this is what a lot of people don't do. Like back in the day, when I was like 19 and left home and left college and moved in with my boyfriend at that time, I didn't think about all these things, right? But now I'm wiser. I know that you need to be asking the person, so what are you looking for in a relationship? Like, tell me what a relationship would look like to you on a day-to-day basis. And you should be doing this whether it's an in-person relationship or whether it's a long-distance relationship. Because unless that person can categorically say their ideal relationship, you're not going to know what the hell they want or their expectations, and vice versa. You have to be able to discuss your expectations. Like, how much communication do you need in this long distance relationship? Do you need it daily? Is it 3 times a day? Morning, mid-afternoon, night? Do you need a morning communication? Do you need evening? Anyone who will see this, don't let someone keep you as a secret to their family, friends, etc. Don't let them disrespect you like that. Thank you, Stevie. Yeah, I mean, the guy back in June, who I said I couldn't do an unofficial relationship with, because that wouldn't be fair to me. It was anxiety inducing. I said, unless you can give me a date to come over here, I can't do that. And they couldn't do that, right? And they changed their mind in the end. But they said they told their friends about me, but they weren't going to tell their mum or dad. And it's like, you know what I mean, when they live with these people. And I'm like, you know what I mean, it's like they weren't going to tell them till they'd actually met me in person. And they weren't going to make anything official till they'd met me in person. But if they're asking me for a long-distance relationship, then they should be making it official, because we'd still be in a relationship, but they wanted an unofficial relationship, And to me, that kind of and they said, oh, when we get together, they wouldn't be posting many photographs of me and them, just like one together, right? Because they thought we were going to get together in a year's time when they came over to see me, right? And so very presumptuous, obviously, but it's and they said, oh, I'd only post one because I don't want to spam. Yet they posted loads of pictures of their food dishes on their Facebook profile. And now I've had time to think about the so-called relationship that was never a relationship. I've had time to think so basically photographs of me and them together would be spam, but it's okay to just put loads and loads of like photographs of pies and what you're cooking on there, loads of the photographs, you know, like, and I'm thinking that's not very nice, you know, like, why would you think someone who's your partner is spam? It's kind of like, you know, not particularly pleasant thing to think about, to be honest. And I kind of think it degrades the person you're with if you think you know, you're spamming because you're showing lots of pictures of you and your partner. Like, people should be happy for you to be together with them. They should be happy that you've found someone you love and care about and can be happy with, and they want to see that, you know. Like, I love it if I see pictures of my friends with their partners. You know, one of my friends who's asexual, who's married to his asexual partner, his profile is like him and his partner, his wife, sorry, him and his wife, you know, and that his profile picture is usually always kept of their wedding, because he loves his wife. He's definitely, you know, devoted to her, and I know what he was like before he got with her, because I knew him as a friend before and he came to my asexual meetups. And it was actually my meetups that spurred him on to attend other meetups, and he spent 3 months solidly going. Let him keep his pie, Sandra. You are too good for him. Oh, thank you, Stevie. Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Like, looking back on it now, I'm thinking, oh, right, yeah. It's still difficult because I had a connection, I thought, with him and feelings. But you know what I mean? But looking back on it, I'm like, that guy really doesn't deserve you when he thinks, like, photographs of you and him are spam. It's like, really? If I really was the love of his life and soulmate, why would he consider that spam? You know, so, like you said, let him keep his pies. He can be baking forever now on his own. Apparently that's what he wants to do, so let him get on with it, right? But eventually, you know, like, his parents aren't going to be around forever. His friends aren't going to be around forever. What's he going to do then? But there you go, you know. He's very reliant on his friends, family and community. And I love my friends, don't get me wrong. Friends are very important to me, as is my community here and everything. But you know what I mean? There does come a time when you're thinking, like, if you really are saying someone's your soulmate, you love them, that, you know, that you'd really respect them a lot more than saying they're spam. So I'm laughing about it now, but it's not very funny, really. But it's like, looking back, I'm like, oh my God. I kind of only thought about that afterwards, you know. So yeah, because he's like, oh, I'm not public like you are. But also for his work, interestingly enough, he posts quite a lot for his work, because he's got a Facebook page for work, and he quite happily do loads of photographs for that. And so I'm thinking, you know, it's not very congruent, is it, really? It's like, okay, so you post loads of stuff about food, you post stuff for your work, but that's fine because it's work. But it's spam if you're posting photographs of you and a partner that you're meant to absolutely adore and love and care about, or potential partner, in whatever it was. I don't know anymore. I wasn't his partner. Well, he asked me to unofficially be his girlfriend, and then within less than 24 hours, I'm like, no, I can't do that. So, you know, but I don't usually do anything to do with long distance. The only type of long distance I would think about doing is in my own country, which I haven't really spoke much about in this video so far. So, but I did at the beginning say, like, I couldn't do it if it was in a place, for example, like Manchester, because I'd only literally, him calling pictures of you and him spam is like a huge red flag. Yeah, thank you, Stevie. I didn't actually think about that at the time. I was kind of like understanding towards him because he's like, oh, I'm introverted, I'm not like you, and you know, like, out, you know, he isn't even out about being asexual. But the interesting thing is, he bought a copy of my book, and he bought a t-shirt from me, and was going to come out to his mum as asexual wearing the t-shirt, thinking she would guess what it was because she's aware of LGBT+. So the colours he apparently thinks would be, but it doesn't say asexual on there. So unless she really understands what the colours mean, it could just be an ordinary t-shirt, you know. So it's very interesting. He'll never forget me anyway, because he's got my book. And if he's bought a t-shirt, unless he just decides to get rid of it, he's just never going to forget me. And you don't really forget someone anyway like me. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, well, never mind. But yeah, I didn't really think about it being a red flag at the time. I just was trying to be understanding of a person who's different to me and trying to accommodate their needs. But then when he started posting a lot of the food stuff, and, you know, and then when he was online, and I was thinking, why is he online a lot? Because he's like told me he only uses Facebook to speak to me, and then he was like, oh, if you check the page, I've just posted this photograph to there. and I've just, like done these photographs were done by me, but that's okay because it's for work, but I just don't want to, fill my profile for the spam. Me and his photographs, basically, and I'm like, yeah, that's, afterwards that's so horrible. You know what I mean? It's like, most people would be proud to be with their partner. They'd be posting about places they've been together, fun times they'd had together. He didn't even try to be open about being with you. His parents might be okay with it. You never know. Yeah, I know. So, whoops. I mean, this guy as well, he wasn't in his 20s. Like, I usually go for guys in their 20s. He was in his early 30s, very early 30s. I can't even remember if he was 30 or 32. Somewhere between that, because I'm kind of like getting used to not thinking about him as much anymore, which I'm really glad about. So he's starting to fade quite a bit in that way. And it's like age, I just know it's 30 something, but I can't remember because I'm like, I don't usually go for guys in their 30s. But he was not mature compared to a lot of the 24-year-olds I know. I know a lot more 24-year-olds that were a lot more mature than he was. And then I realised, partway through, it's like, oh yeah, I guess I should take a relationship more seriously. And I was thinking, I didn't even know you didn't take it seriously, because I found him in an asexual group, a dating group, and he was saying that he was still hopeful he would find someone for a relationship, even though he did, he replied, yes, he did worry about being on his own or getting with the wrong person, but he was hopeful still. So I thought, he's a dead serious guy. He's clearly still looking for a relationship because he's still hopeful. When you're hopeful for something, you're still kind of on the lookout for it, right? And so I thought he was dead serious. And when he first started talking to me, he seemed really into me and interested. He would make time for me, and then it just went to the opposite. So it's kind of like really weird. I guess I just have to, I'm a lot more over him now than I was before. I guess maybe there's still some feeling of maybe attachment a little bit in some ways, but not to the point where I was before. I mean, I don't really think about him as much anymore, and certainly not to the extent I used to. I kind of just feel it's a shame, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is his loss. Do you know what I mean? Because he did say to me he might regret not being with me, but then, he couldn't really make me happy anyway. If we look at the actual, like you say, red flag evidence, like, does he actually know what spam is? Posting pictures of your relationship is not something unwanted like spam. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, that's basically, he's like, spam is usually something you don't want, but he's like basically saying that would be spam for his friends to see, and he didn't want to clog his profile up with things basically like that, which means basically he's trying to, he said, oh, when I come over there, which would have been next summer, next year, then I'll take, that's when I'll ask you to officially be in a relationship with me then. And then I'll post one picture of me and you together saying we're in a relationship now, but that'll be all I do because I'm not like you. He was okay with me posting pictures of me and him, though, on my profile, he did say, and that I could tag, and if I could tag him in it. So I thought that was okay. But he said, I don't want to clog my feed up, my profile up with spam. So he kind of like made it kind of sound like you can just take care of that side of our relationship, the photograph side, and I'll leave that to you. But I'm not sure, to be honest, how much photographing of me and him he was even like on my profile. But you say, oh, I leave my mum up to a lot of photographic stuff, and she posts stuff with me and her on it, and I just let her get on with it. It's not really my thing. So he kind of like left light, but when he said about spam, and then I'm thinking, my God, he sounds ashamed and shallow. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when yes. Basically, I shouldn't ever be too kind, but sometimes yes. I mean, basically, like if I was with someone, I'd be so proud to be with them, and I'd be taking some photographs of me and them, together, because I'll be sharing moments. And, when you've got a special someone in your life, you kind of want to show it off a bit, that's natural, I think, if you love someone, especially, I am in the public eye. There's no getting away from that. I can't, like cover up and say I'm not, and I've got to get a guy who's really, really comfortable and confident to be with an asexual girl in public, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to stop helping asexuals. I see me helping asexuals to the day I die. It's not something I want to do temporarily. I don't see me here on YouTube just temporarily. I mean, this is my 6th year now, this month. So it's my anniversary for this month, for 6 years, you know, of this channel. It's also our Asexual Awareness Week this month as well, which is when I officially started back in 2015. I officially launched on Asexual Awareness Week, although I started the channel in September 2015, but I officially launched it in October 2015. Excuse me. So yeah, but I really need a guy who's like loud and proud to be with me, really, you know, and who's very strong. I find there's not many guys that are strong, you know. It's like as soon as you tell them you're publicly asexual, a lot of asexuals, they're like, oh my god, I can't let anyone know I'm asexual, it's terrible, no one can know, so therefore I can't be with you if you want a public relationship with me. And then usually sexuals don't mind being in a relationship with an asexual girl, but lately, like, Facebook dating is quite funny. It's not, but it is. As soon as I share my Facebook profile, a lot of them won't even friend request me because they're too scared. It's like, oh, I can't be connected to someone who's asexual and publicly asexual. I mean, like, I said I like this girl. But it's a really good test, though. You know, I do it quite a lot. I'm like, oh, here's my Facebook profile. Connect with me on there. And if a guy doesn't connect with me on there, I know he's not really serious because he's too scared. It's like, oh, my God. She's like, you know, like a really, you know, well-known in the asexual sphere. She's actually, you know, like publicly about this, you know. And so it's like, yeah, of course I am. I came out to my therapist recently. Oh, Stevie, well done. That's amazing. I think I already told my therapist. The new one I've got, I've only just started saying, I kind of tell everyone straight away. But yeah, I'm so proud of you for doing that. How did it go? As I know it can be difficult with some therapists. They're really good and other therapists are rubbish, and other therapists are like, kind of like, they try to pretend they know and they don't really understand. But, you know, I hope you've got a good therapist. This time when I've mentioned it, I think I mentioned it in my introduction in my email to them, you know, they haven't really batted an eyelid, which is good for me, really. So I just carry on talking about it sometimes, but mostly I'm talking about like work and stuff that's been going on that's difficult for me, which I can't go into publicly, but yes, so that's been kind of hard. But I'm really glad you came out about being asexual, you know. One of my friends did say to me, why were you even interested in this guy back in June? She was intrigued about it. She had never heard of ace before. Wow. Dearie me. Still needs a lot of recognition globally, I think, you know, globally. But yeah, going back into the guy of June, clearly he wasn't the right guy for me, so I'm still looking for my guy. But yeah, I need someone who's publicly out about being asexual, I think, you know, not afraid to be out, you know, because there's other YouTubers and they actually have their partner with them, even though they're asexual, you know, and you know, people just like they have interviews, Q&A with them and their asexual partner. I'd love that eventually, if I had an asexual partner, for them to appear a few times on my channel at least, you know, so they could do a Q&A with me about what it's like to be in a relationship with each other. And I think it'd really be good for this channel, you know. So, you know, it's you know, long distance relationship, personally for me, I couldn't do one. Like, that was the only time I kind of like partly tried it, and it's just like, I can't do it. I already didn't really want to do a long distance relationship anyway, because it's some rule I usually have where I don't do them, because for me, I need someone here physically in person. I mean, there is an asexual guy that likes me at the moment. I have some feelings for him, he has some feelings for me, but he lives abroad and he's never going to come over here, is the truth. And even if he did, our relationship needs aren't the same, you know. I don't want marriage, I don't want to live with someone, I like living on my own. You know, and that person wants both of them, and they have no money to get over here, and they're studying for years, and so, you know, they can't come over here. It's a shame, because I do have feelings for them, even though they're not actually Indian. We get on really well nowadays. We understand each other very well. They tell me a lot of stuff they probably don't tell other people, and I do have a really good, like, online relationship with them. But, you know, I can't be in a relationship with them because it just wouldn't work, you know, because they haven't got the funds to come over here. They're probably never going to actually come over here. I don't want to move to their country. My country's much better in terms of standard of living over here. I love the flat I live in. I love living on my own. I've kind of got everything sorted here apart from my guy, if you know what I mean. So that's not something I want to be doing. I don't, even though I like foreign guys, I don't want to be moving. I don't even want to marry an Indian guy, even though I love Indian guys, you know. Because I just don't like marriage. I don't like the concept of it personally. My parents have been married for 52 years. So it's not like I can't see it successful, because I know it's successful in some cases, right? One of my asexual friends is married to their asexual wife, you know, so it does work out sometimes. I'm not saying it doesn't, but for me personally, I kind of like, I like the idea romantically of marriage. I like the fairy tale, but I know that people change, unfortunately. And for me, I don't even like wearing, I've got this thing about wearing jewellery that I feel caged down. And the experiences I've had in my life, I just think I just don't want marriage. I've been engaged before, but never married. And I just don't like the whole housewifey thing as well. It's not something I'm interested in at all or want to ever be like. I'm just not like that. So, you know, and some people, when you get married, they do change. You know, it's like they expect things now. They're married and you're tied to a contract with them, and people change, unfortunately. So I think it's much better to not be married, in my own personal opinion. I know this is personal preference, you know. Some people, obviously, I would warn, if you get offered marriage very quickly in a long distance relationship, beware, they're after a visa usually. It's sad to say this, but it's something you really do need to look out for on the internet, particularly. Because I have been approached for marriage lots by a guy, they just met me, you know. And it's just because they want a visa, you know. It's like, oh hi, I'll marry you. Actually, I've had that. Like someone go, hi, I want to marry you. It's like, one is, hello, I've never met you before. Two is, I don't want marriage. And then they go, why don't you want marriage? I'm like, because I'm not interested in marriage. So why aren't you interested in marriage? I'm like, because I'm not interested in marriage. So why? It's because I don't like doing housework, cooking or cleaning for a guy. I don't want to be married to a guy. I don't agree with that type of thing. I'm like, why? I'm like, because I don't. It's like goes on and on and on. So I just usually get fed up and like I'm like either block them or like it's because I don't. End of story, you know. So yeah, but I currently have a guy on Facebook who's not asexual, and he lives in France, and he's like keeps inviting me to his place and asking me to marry him. He's not doing it really horribly though. It's just people who want to marry strangers ruin marriage. Yes, exactly. But this guy in France, honestly, he keeps messaging me, going, I love you sincerely and dearly. Please come and live with me and get married. It's like, I keep telling him I'm interested in younger guys, not older guys. I'm sure he loves loads of women as well, not just me. We used to have a mutual entrepreneur friend, and as far as I know, he liked her as well, plus loads of other women. But it's really funny because he keeps bombing moments going, I love you sincerely. Oh, please marry me. I'm like, no. Oh, God, it's so funny. But he's been on my friends list for a while, but we don't have any proper conversations. That's pretty much it. Like, I live in France. I've got a house. I want marriage and kids. It's like, I don't want marriage and kids. I'm asexual as well. Like, oh my God. But yeah, but I do get a lot of guys. I mean, there was one guy I think I spoke about on this channel the other day. Asexual Indian guy came in my inbox and basically demanded within 3 sets of messages, I should say, that you know, like if I want him to come over here, I need to be ready to support him now, because you know I have to basically give in the relationship. It's like, one, I've only just met you, and 2, I'm not going to be here to financially support a guy, you know. And he had quite a lot of problem with the British government anyway that he wasn't happy about. I'm thinking, why would you even move to a country when you're not happy with the British government? And he's like, oh, it's really difficult to get married abroad. But he wanted me to tell him I would definitely marry him and support him if he came over there. And this is in 3 lots of messages within 12 hours, you know, that I only just met him. It's like, I told him no. And he kind of used the emotional technique of, oh, I'll be single forever then. I'm like, okay, good luck. Thanks for your interest. Bye. You know, it's like, be single then, you know. But it's kind of emotional blackmail technique, you know, like, oh, you had your chance with me and that's it. So now I'm off the market type thing, you know. It's like, it's kind of like what people do, which is just that type of thing is very controlling, you know. And again, that's something I haven't really talked about in online long distance. You have to understand as well, there are a lot of people who are scammers out there and spammers, and genuine, I should say, more scammers than spammers. And I have known, for example, through the asexuality.com asexual dating websites, a couple of people who said they have moved countries, and when they got there they were scammed. Have you seen anyone videos of men trying psychologically control women? I watch a lot of videos about, about what an unhealthy relationship looks like, what a controlling guy looks like. I'm very, very aware now of controlling, manipulative guys. That's why I said in the 3 lots of messages, this guy tried to, like, ultimately be controlling within 3 sets of messages within 12 hours, right? You don't go around giving ultimatums to someone you've just met and say the only way to the UK is through marriage and to support, and you're not being, he turned it on me. This is very narcissistic and controlling. Within 12 hours, less than 12 hours, 3 sets of messages, basically trying to make me feel bad that if a guy came over here who'd be making such a sacrifice, that I need to make sacrifice as well. I would need to get married and would need to be able to support him. It's like, no, right? And seriously, that's a controlling, manipulative, narcissistic type of guy, and I pity the next person that he's gone on to, but it's sad. So, I'm very aware. I do a lot of videos on this channel about abusers, about scammers, and stuff like that. So if you need any of those videos, they are on this channel. I have personal experience of this quite a bit, sadly, but the good thing is I know what's happening nowadays, right? But I did a SAFE course, Stop Abuse for Everyone. It's an organisation in the UK in 2013. So I learned back then to spot signs and patterns of abuse, which I was trained in for 14 weeks. And that was very, very helpful. Because I was in abusive relationships in the past and I never want to be ever again, right? The thing is abusers and narcissists are attracted to a certain type of person, and I have some of those traits that would automatically attract that type of person. I'm very empathetic, which they don't actually like. They'll try and suck the life out of you and stop you being empathetic, but they kind of they kind of drawn to that because they think they can control you with it. So they want an empathetic person to basically suck the life out of and make them not empathetic anymore, if you know what I mean, because they think they're easy prey. So, it's like, I like an Indian guy, but not to the point I'm stupid and would accept someone like just marrying me like that, or would accept someone controlling me or manipulating me. There was a guy in a non-asexual group, and he started emotionally blackmailing me, saying he was going to do something like kill himself basically, or do something terrible to himself, which was implying suicide if I didn't be with him. YouTube keeps putting them on my For You page, and I don't know why. It's like I'm going to control myself or other women. I couldn't quite see all the message on this iPad, unfortunately. I don't think there's any way I can see your message, or can I? Let's see. If I can do it or not. I don't. Right, okay. YouTube keeps putting them on my For You page, and I don't know why. It's like I'm sorry. I'm trying to read it on my iPad. Oh my god. It's like, am I going to control myself or other women? Like, no, YouTube, you're drunk, go home. Am I going to control myself or other women? That's kind of strange. Have you ever looked at any videos? So maybe if you looked at any of mine about abuse or anything like that, because once you go and look at videos about manipulation, control, abuse and narcissism or stuff like that, then YouTube will automatically show you videos that they think might be relevant to something you've clicked on, anything you've clicked on, right? But it's so silly, because sometimes I start getting, if I watched a song, for example, and then it's gone on to one that's like a kid's song, then I'll start seeing stuff about kids. I might even start seeing stuff about parenting when I never want to be a parent. I'm not interested in having children, right? But because, YouTube's gone through its cycle of stuff and it's gone on to like a kid's song, or maybe it's gone from teenager to kids. But sometimes I've actually clicked on kids because maybe I've seen like a video about the Muppets or something, I love the Muppets. And so, then it started thinking, oh, this person's a kid, so they want to see kids movies, or they got children, so they're showing me all this kids stuff. And then that's how I end up with lullabies even sometimes on my YouTube playlist just running through automatically, and I'm busy doing other stuff, and then all of a sudden these lullabies come up. I'm thinking, this is getting a bit young for me, like even me, like, and I'm like, oh right, okay, I must have clicked through something that's to do with kids. Maybe it's like I want to avoid abuse, no abusing someone. Yeah. I mean, yeah, did you actually watch the content of the video to see what it was about? Because sometimes they do kind of like, they do videos that are kind of like, what's it called? Counterintuitive. So they'll say the opposite of what it's actually meant to be. Or they might be someone who does, a channel that has about abusive relationships, and there might be like 10 signs you're actually an abuser yourself or something like that, because that is something they can do on certain channels. You know, they'll kind of turn it, they'll do a one where they've turned it around and say maybe you're actually the abuser and stuff. I have seen that happen sometimes. You know, because there probably is some people that watch this channel, you know, because there's not just asexuals that watch it sometimes. There might be some narcissistic people who watch this channel, you know, and they might watch one of my videos and think, oh my god, I see myself in that. Or usually narcissists wouldn't, because they wouldn't think like that. For example, I once had someone come on my Asexualise page, and I spoke about narcissism in a video, and I shared it to my page, and this person got very upset with me because they were basically saying they were a narcissist and I wasn't being very nice about narcissists, and so they didn't like it. So yeah, it's kind of weird. So that was very interesting, because they were like, narcissism is a mental disorder and you shouldn't be saying stuff like this about it, right? But you know what I mean? There are people in life, I've had this discussion with some of my friends, there are people in life that are abusive, that have gone through the same or similar situations to someone who chose not to be abusive, you know? Like, there is loads of people that have been bullied, but some people have been bullied decide to bully other people, and then other people decide not to. Right? I've been bullied, and I've had a lot of abuse, right? And I've had lots of things happen in my life. Now, I could sit here being very revengeful and you know, and try and get revenge and everything like that, but I'm not that type of person, you know? I'm not going to go around abusing other people and taking that out on other people just because someone didn't treat me well. Because I've got a choice, and everyone has a choice. So some people are like, oh, I abuse people because, you know, I was abused when I was a child and all this bad stuff happened to me. But I know equally there's people who I even know as friends who've been badly abused in their childhood, but they don't go around abusing other people, right? But they'll use that as an excuse. I'm going off on a tangent here, but you know, it's kind of like interesting, but it's you know, it's like, to me, it's like there's no excuse for abuse. You know, if you're defending yourself, it's different. I just report videos that say how to make women like you. I'm asexual, not a lesbian, and 2, you shouldn't control someone. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of videos, dating videos, how to make someone like you. It's a lot of key words that are used on dating channels because they get views, basically. Some of those channels are more innocent in the sense that they're actually saying nice stuff, but other ones are not good, right? So it depends on the content. You know, but the way it says make you is obviously not good. But it's kind of like language a lot of people are Googling on YouTube, right? And so that's why they do it, because they pick keywords out. It's like when you're trying to sell a book, you kind of have to put keywords in there that people are actually searching for, whether you actually, you know, yourself want all the words in there. But I try and pick words of titles that I think people are searching for, which is what you're taught to do. But what they do on YouTube a lot of the time is they're literally picking words out that are hot topics, that are what is most searched for, and then they'll copy the searched for words so that their videos will show up more. I mean, if I was a person who just wanted to get views, then I'd probably, you know, like be doing different types of titles. But you'll notice my channel's got a lot less subs than some other asexual channels. But that's because I won't be someone I'm not. I don't go around pretending to be another person. I am who I am, and my content's very specific. It's very educational, informative. These videos are very long, like this live stream now. Some people don't like that. They like really short videos. and some people like really pristine, I meant pristine thumbnails and everything like that, whereas mine's more of a vlog style. But it's no good me trying to pretend to be someone I'm not, and I don't want to just say something to get views, you know. It's not what I'm about. And there was one person quite a long time ago, and she got very angry and upset with me, and the fact that I wouldn't like do demonstrations of wigs on my channel and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, but you get so many more subs if you started doing videos that people are searching for. And I'm like, I'm not going to go round doing videos that's got nothing to do with asexuality and that's got no relevance to my life and something I'm not even interested in. Oh, but you get more subs, I'm telling you, and I'm trying to help you. I'm like, I'm not interested in just getting more subs. I'm here to help asexuals, right? You know, I mean, this channel's got over 200,000 views, so it's doing really, really well. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, I've got a very good community here. It's a very safe community in general. I mean, I do get some trolls, especially like the other day I tried to stream earlier. Then I got someone who was being a bit disruptive in there, who clearly wasn't asexual. I think I handled it quite well, but it's hard sometimes. I haven't seen any videos that has a woman trying to control men to like them, so maybe it's just sexism. Wouldn't be the first. Yes, yeah, it's interesting because a lot of I found out which I said in a entrepreneur group recently, but they just didn't understand where I was coming from. So I said that I found out, because I have found out through research, because I do watch a lot of, there's certain dating coaches I watch more than others. There's one particular one, he's very sensible. He doesn't go for just keyword titles. He teaches real authentic stuff, like no games, no manipulation tactics, nothing like that. He's genuinely good. He's really good at what he does. He's very expensive. I think to get coaching from him, I think it's like £4,000 for a month, you know, like to be with him 3 or 4 months. So he's a really expensive guy, right? So that isn't cheap coaching, right? Because I once went through his free course and thought, I'll click to find out how much his coaching is, and it's like, yeah, I can't afford £4,000. But I have no doubt that he's really good, because when he does his videos, they're such high quality and they stand out above everyone else's. I know one other coach that's quite good as well, but, you know, he stands out amongst all of them. I watch his stuff a lot of the time, you know. Obviously, because I'm asexual, some of it's not so relevant to me, you know. And being an asexual person on the asexual dating scene and trying to find an asexual relationship and dating sexuals is like very unique, which is why I do this channel, to help asexuals as well, because it's a very different perspective. But there are a lot of things that he teaches, which is healthy relationships, and he shows you the signs of controlling guys. And he doesn't use, you know, manipulation techniques or any of that rubbish, you know. And so that's much better. But through talking to him, I think it was another couple of coaches, particularly, I think it was, I asked directly, I said, you know, basically, I've noticed that most guys coach women. Why is that? And I found out it's because most, in terms of gender, I know I'm going to get a bit sexist here, so I'm not meaning to be, but this is what I found out in terms of male and female, that women are more likely to change than guys. And so therefore that's why most men coach women in relationships and dating and not guys, because the guys they're not usually willing to change. This is what a dating coach told me. And because of their ego, because they don't want to admit there's things that that they've got wrong, that they're not, that they need to improve on. And so therefore that's why they target women, because they're the ones that are going to change more, going to pay more to change, going to actually want to change. And so therefore that's why the advertise, that's why most channels are for women. Now, when you see this and you think, my God, this just opens up a whole can of worms, because you realise that means there's a lot of guys out there that aren't getting help for any relationship and dating problems. And if they are actually the problem, it means they're not going to solve their problem. And so therefore, unless the woman actually changes herself to be in a relationship, and the guy basically doesn't, then it's not going to be a so-called healthy relationship. And then you think, well, a healthy relationship is based on two people developing and growing, not just the female. And if the guy's not prepared to change, that means there's a hell of a lot of guys out there that aren't actually healthy to be in a relationship with in the first place. And so this then leads me to understand why a lot of women do actually get hurt, why a lot of women end up with controlling, abusive, narcissistic guys, because there's a lot of guys out there that aren't willing to change, that are very ego driven, even though they're not consciously aware of it some of the time. And therefore it's all placed on the women, and they have to make it seem like women have the problem, because it's only them that really pay the money to change. And so therefore this is how the dating industry works a lot of the time. And so this was a real shocker for me and a real eye-opener. So I was in this, I'm in this entrepreneur group, and I put it like the post, that you have to understand that, even if, you can be, if you're an attractive person, you're going to attract both healthy people, healthy guys, for example, and you're going to attract unhealthy guys, guys that are abusers, not just guys who aren't. And so, I was trying to be positive towards women, saying women give themselves a hard time, but you have to understand that sometimes, like if you're an attractive person, you're going to attract both healthy people and abusers, right? And sometimes you have to just understand that it's for the guy to sort their own shit, excuse my language, out, basically sort their own shit out, it's not all on the women. And then in the list of like this post I put in this entrepreneur dating group, I had loads of women saying, oh yeah, but it's all about, you have to look internally, you need to change yourself and all the rest of it. I thought, you're just not getting it, are you? The whole point of the post was to say that women are trying to change themselves all the time, and actually if guys haven't dealt with their own stuff, it doesn't matter what you do, they're still going to, if they're abusive or got narcissistic or abusive traits, they're not going to change, because I don't think they're going to need to change. And as most of the dating industry is geared around women changing, it means that a lot of the guys have got problems, haven't they, that are actually causing the problem. And it's not actually the woman's fault, because so many women are going around blaming themselves and looking internally to change themselves. But if the guy's not changing as well, it means you're just changing for the guy, and basically you're not getting your own needs met anyway. So, this is what I've discovered, and, I was surprised and shocked at how many women just kind of pushed against me. And it was supposed to be a post supporting women, and to be honest, most of the time in my life, I have got more guy friends, and I prefer being around guys, because to me, guys actually say, having said all this about guys, me being friends with the guy, they tell it like it is, they're very direct, and they're very honest and open quite a lot. When you get into a relationship with guys, it can be a lot different. I find guys are a lot better as friends, but in a relationship, they can be not good, right? This is my experience in my life, right? And so as friends, I think they make really good friends. They usually don't bullshit, excuse my language. They're usually very direct. But in relationships, they're not necessarily very good. And so, I was kind of like, a lot of the time I find women very catty, very bitchy. Not all women, but a lot of, sexual women, should I say. Normal, heterosexual women, probably. I find a lot of them kind of like very bitchy, very catty, and like, and to get that from a lot of women in the group, and they were kind of like saying, oh, they saying, oh, you need to change. I said, I'm not actually in a relationship. I'm happily single, thank you. And so the society and the way videos are geared is, it's always the woman's fault, basically, and the woman needs to change something. And so this is very damaging. And there's a lot of stuff in the spiritual world where this upsets me, because I have known so many girls that think it's their fault, even they got abused. I thought that even one at a time it is the abuser's fault. Yeah, it is really, really difficult. It is sad, because in spirituality, right, because I follow spirituality as well, and spiritual master and stuff like that, it's very difficult, because, and this is what makes life quite hard in relationships, right, is because with this spiritual master, he teaches, as a lot of spiritual coaches do, that you have to look within yourself, and that every relationship you have is a reflection of yourself. So therefore, if there's a person you're in a relationship with and they are, for example, doing some abusive stuff, it means there's a problem with you and you have to fix it. And this is how it goes. And this is very, very damaging, right? Because you automatically then start believing it's you and that you have to change yourself and it's always your fault. And so what is more healthy is, one of the dating coaches I follow, the one I follow the most, is he's like saying, which I found out, is the only real issue going on and the way in which it would be your responsibility is by staying with an abuser. So in my experience, it's not necessarily your fault that you were abused. It's your responsibility to accept the responsibility you stayed with an abuser. But it doesn't mean to say that it was right for them to abuse you. And basically, you should have got her out of the relationship sooner. You know, I hold my hands up to the fact I was with an abuser for 8.5 years. I was with him for 1.5 years. We split up for 6 months, and I got back with him for 7 years. Like, I don't pretend that's someone else's fault. I don't make it out to be someone else's fault. It was very like living in a mental prison. I chose to go back to him. I felt compelled. That's why I'm very weary of relationships nowadays, because I felt compelled. I was like very, very unhealthily attached to this guy, and I've learned about different attachments, healthy and unhealthy now. And so it was my responsibility that I was with him. It wasn't my fault that he abused me, because he's responsible for his own actions. I'm not responsible for another adult's actions, and I learnt this through the SAVE course, the Stop Abuse for Everyone it stands for as well, is that you are not responsible for another person's actions. So it's not my fault that he decided to be abusive, right? But it's my responsibility. I don't like to say the word fault, but it's my responsibility that I was with him for that long. But I felt compelled to be with him. It was kind of like, like an unhealthy love addiction, if you like. And so, I've been through that. I couldn't leave him. I had to wait for him to physically split up with me the last time. But that's partly because within the 6 months when I did leave him, he used to stalk me for all that time, and I gave in the end, right? And so I wanted him to leave of his own accord, which he did finally. But he still came back with wrists that he cut, but he didn't do a very good job. They were just like permanently, they were just like a little bit blood there, tiny little bit, like perforated the skin. But even so, you can tell what a manipulator and controller he is when he's coming down to my place, trying to beg me to take him back because he's cut his wrists in some way, That is psychological, emotional manipulation that I didn't fall for ever again, and that was it, basically. And then he still tried to come near my place. And he ended up talking to me, and I ended up having this discussion, and that was it, basically, because he was jealous of my own guinea pigs back then, and I came home one day from work and there was a hole punched in the wall because he was jealous of the guinea pigs. This is how it went, and I was so worried about the guinea pigs at the time. One of them was very poorly, and so this is how it went, and he apparently told his mum that I loved the guinea pigs more than I loved him, and and it was just crazy. It was a crazy, really weird, unhealthy relationship. It hurt me dearly when we split up, because I did have deep love for that guy, even though it wasn't good to me. And so yeah, it took me a while to get over him. But I'm glad I'm over him now, but sometimes I have dreams about him still, which is really annoying. It's because I talk about him quite a bit on this channel. I don't use his name, obviously, because he was the last guy I ever had actual sex with, because I have had sex in the past. And so whenever I refer to my past sex life, which is nearly 10 years ago now, 10 years ago next month, well, it's actually 10 years ago this month, because I have last had sex with him in October 2011, but I don't know what date it was in October, so I always think of November 2011, and plus November the 5th 2011 was when he actually left me for good. Well, obviously he tried to come back. Oh my gosh, how immature. Jealous over guinea pigs. Yeah, jealous over guinea pigs. And it was a rented accommodation. He punched a hole in the wall. And it was horrible, because I feared for my guinea pigs, like what must the hell of their life been like when I was at work when he did that, So yes, he was a very controlling, manipulative, weird guy. But yeah, he told his mum that I loved the guinea pigs more than him. This home I'm here now, this flat is where I came to when I had to move out from living with him. He was going to leave me anyway, technically speaking, so I just got the hell out of there and came to live here, and I've lived here ever since, which I'm grateful for, So yeah, it was kind of really weird. I've been in really bad. The only thing he wasn't abusive over was the sexual part of our relationship, and that's why I liked that time with him. He was like a completely different person then. Kind, caring, putting me first. Very bizarre. I'm glad he was like that, because I'm glad I wasn't sexually abused at all by him, It was consensual, and, it was with him, and, he would stop at any time I didn't want to do anything, so it was quite strange, because that's the only way he wasn't abusive. in every other way he was. And so I'm grateful for that, though, because I'm grateful that the last, the sexual experience I had with him was good, in terms of, like, he would always stop, he would, like, put my pleasure before his own. I preferred the kissing and touching at that point rather than sex, but so it's kind of weird. You are very strong, Sandra. I'm glad you got away from that creep. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad as well. I knew while I was with him it wouldn't last forever, and that I would eventually break free of him, but it was really difficult because I was very attached to him. It was very, very hard, So in the end, we didn't live together. I actually lived here and he lived in his own place, but it was very difficult. He was very abusive. He used to shout a lot at me, even in my place here. So it's kind of like I've been pinned up against things and all sorts. Yeah, so I just don't really go into it much on this channel because it's not really a nice thing to talk about, But I never, ever, ever want to be in that type of scenario again, And, it's just quickly popping in. Oh, lots of love, Yuli. Lovely to see you. Sorry, I can't stay for long, but I always end up relating to almost everything you speak about, Sandra. Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. Oh, I'm just trying to see the chat again. To almost everything you speak about on here. Happy weekend, Sandra. Oh, you relate to nearly everything, do you? Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, so it was a really tough relationship. It was like being in mental torture. I always kind of celebrate in November every year that I'm free of that, And I'm, I'm still here. I'm still going, But for me, when I did the pan changing course with SAFE, Stop Abuse for Everyone, it's a 14-week course, and they actually said, I mentioned this on my channel the other day, that was back in 2013 I did that course. In the UK, it was 1 in every 3 relationships, so 33% of the people you meet is abusive. Thanks for the thumbs up, lots of love. And so, that was shocking for me. That means 33%. That means like 1 in every 3 guys I meet is like to be abusive. And so I'm very aware of that now, and you can only really tell someone sometimes over a long period of time if they're going to be that way, but even then they can change. I had a friend who, after 11 months, became abusive to me, and so I had to just stop the friendship. And I'd known him for 11 months and a year. So that was really difficult. When I was at the Stop Abuse for Everyone course, there was a woman, I mentioned that on this channel before as well, that she was married to a guy for 2 years. 2 years, he never was abusive, and then all of a sudden after 2 years he became abusive, which is a really strong reason why I do not want to get married, In the ideal fairy tale romantic way, it'd be wonderful, but I just know personally as well, for me, I know, but because of my character traits and because of my caring, empathetic nature, that I naturally would attract narcissistic or abusive guys, sadly, and I'm very aware of that for myself, So I have to understand that most of the guys I meet are not necessarily going to have my best interests at heart, and I have to really be able to spot abusers very quickly now. It's kind of like a bit weird because it's kind of like I get so perceptive from just a few things in a message now that I can just tell if a guy's abusive very quickly, and it's good, but it's kind of like I'm thinking, God, I bet other women wouldn't even necessarily recognize this, because years ago I wouldn't. Years ago I'd think, God, that's so romantic, that's really nice, he's like that. And I wouldn't see the dark side of it. I would just see the romance and lights. And obviously, because I'm still a hyper-romantic, I do have that initial romance and I still have those feelings. And it's difficult sometimes because sometimes your brain wants to overlook red flags in favour of the romance. It's like, oh, maybe that person's like that, but maybe I've got it wrong, And you have to realise that, no, you haven't got it wrong. You're absolutely right. You just don't want to be right, And so it kind of requires a really tough strength of character, because I do get emotionally connected to guys very quickly. I have feelings for guys very quickly, and I have to be able to detach myself from some guys very quickly. And that's kind of like a very big test. It's hard to do in the beginning. I've got more used to doing it now, but it's kind of a really weird thing to do. Because, like, you've got a guy in your life, you emotionally connect with them, you have feelings for each other probably, they may be true the other side, they may not be true, and then it's kind of like, but you've got to get rid of them out of your life quickly because they're no good for you, and you know it, because you've just sent a few messages, and just in the way they speak, the things they say, you know that that's not going to be a good relationship or healthy, so you just have to move on quickly, And it's very difficult sometimes to do, but you have to do it, you know. And so, like, I've lived on my own now for 7 years. It's my 17th year anniversary last year. I'm too young for that, I know, but that's the truth. And so, yeah, I've kind of got used to being on my own, living on my own. I have a pain condition, in case you didn't know, fibromyalgia. So for me, I don't want to be cooking or cleaning or doing housework for a guy. Just stood up doing housework for myself hurts, you know. And that's another thing, you know, if we're going back to long distance relationships, sometimes you do, you know, some people do have physical disabilities and they do need a partner who's there to physically help them in some ways if they're going to have a partner, you know. It might sound weird, but, you know, like, some people do, and, you know, if they're going to have a relationship, they want someone physically there to help them, you know. Like, at the moment, my friend's still helping me out because my ankle's still recovering from being broken, and they're doing, like, the food shopping for me once a week, and they do my cleaning of floors, and they're cool, you know, with all that stuff. They like it. And they're like, oh, you could do with a partner, Sandra, who actually liked doing housework, a guy that liked doing housework for you, because they like doing housework, and they're like, you know, you'd be, you know, because it'd be more helpful for you because of my pain condition, you know. And I've never really, you know, he is right, really, but abusive people open good people's innocent eyes, and it's sad, but it can prevent further abuse. Yes, I agree with you with that. Abusive people can open innocent eyes. I mean, I was really innocent when I first started, you know, dating sexual. Well, I had my first boyfriend at 6 years old, sexual boyfriend. So that was kind of like, I got quite a bit of experience already. And he was abusive at 6 years old, in terms of emotionally blackmailing me at 6. So I haven't had a very good time with relationships, I have to admit. It doesn't mean to say I can't get a healthy relationship, but because I've been in a lot of abusive relationships, I'm very aware that I could, you know, like, end up in another one, but I wouldn't stay in another one if a guy did turn out to be abusive, because I get rid quickly, you know. Even if I feel very strongly for him, I would have to just get rid of him, you know, out of my life. So, you know, it can be very difficult. And, you know, I do love being single, don't get me wrong, I love a lot, and sometimes I'm 50-50 on where I should ever be in a relationship because I'm so independent a lot of the time, but I'm kind of partly still wired to be in a relationship. I partly still love that idea. I don't think everyone's bad, you know. I have friends that are good. I don't think anyone's perfect. I mean, you know, they even say, like, you know, in terms of narcissistic traits or abusive traits, you know, there are people that do have the occasional traits that could be signs of an abuser, right? So when I did the pattern changing course, they're like, you know, if you've got a guy and he's got any of these three or more of these signs, you know, get the hell out, right? Basically 3 things, like, and they said, you know, it's okay, for example, for someone to have this trait occasionally, right, or infrequently, you know, because no one's perfect and they may say something that's not great, but, you know, so you have to basically, with some things, you have to judge it over a period of time, not just in the moment, right? So for example, I don't know how to give an example, but for example, someone might say something a bit like dominating, but then you'd have to take it into context about, you know, like, is that out of character for them, or are they I have to go now, unfortunately. Love this discussion, can't wait for the next one. Oh, okay, lots of love, Stevie, nice to see you. Oh yeah, I've been an hour and a half now, isn't it? So yeah, so you might have someone saying something a bit dominant, and then you have to just obviously find out a bit more, like, are they going to try and control you? Are they saying it because they're used to their parents, where one of them's more dominant than the other in their culture, for example? Are they saying it because they're feeling a bit insecure just at that specific time, you know? So, you know, but if obviously someone's trying to dominate you all the time and control you, then they're abusive, you get the hell out of the relationship. But if they've just said it with one particular thing at one time, and it's kind of like a one-off, a bit out of character for them, you'd have to kind of, like, say something to them, like, speak up and say, you know, like, I noticed you said this to me. I felt very, you know, like, was very dominating towards me. I didn't particularly like it, you know. What's the reason behind that type of thing, you know? So you're having an open, honest discussion, and, you know, you're kind of, like, just, you know, giving them an opportunity to explain themselves, you know, because no one is perfect. There might be some time where they start shouting when they shouldn't do, and then you've got to ask why, or they start raising their voice, and you've got to say something like, do you realise you're raising your voice to me? It's making me uncomfortable. Now, a person who's good will be like, oh, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, right? And someone who's angry usually should be expressing it a good way, saying, I'm feeling really angry right now. You know, like if someone's expressing anger as in verbally rather than shouting, that's a much more healthier type of person, because we have the right to be angry. Like negative emotions you can express, but you have to express them in a constructive, right way, which is not an aggressive way or a passive aggressive way. So an ideal case scenario, you'd be saying, look, I'm really angry right now. But, you know, like for me personally, if I get angry, I can raise my voice a little bit, but I don't shout, I don't throw things around, I don't throw stuff at people or anything like that. So the only thing I do is raise my voice a little bit, like as in it's a little bit louder, and I do express it more angrily, you know, like I'm really angry right now, you know, like that type of thing. But I'm more consciously aware that my voice tone is going up a bit, you know, so I have to keep a tab on that, you know. You know, but that's you know, expressing that you're angry, verbally saying it is the best way to go about it. You know, so I'm really angry right now, and then you say why you're angry, like the behavior. It might not even be the person in front of you you're angry with, right? But you'd say what you're angry about, why you're angry about it, how you're feeling. Some people are very sneaky with psychological abuse. Yes, Julie, I 100% agree with you on that. And I've come across those as well. So what they tend to do, those people, is they will tend to make you feel like you're the one with the problem. And it's very, very, very mind manipulating. I was speaking a bit earlier, I don't know if you were here for that part of the discussion, when I said I had the Indian asexual guy and he sent me 3 sets of messages. And within those 3 sets of messages, bear in mind they were all within less than 12 hours. They'd only just met me online and they were already saying about me marrying them. And then they're dominating comments. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. And this guy, you know, he was basically trying to dominate. He was like basically saying to me that if I want a guy to come over here and you know, move over here, then I need to make sacrifices for them. And the only way into the UK is marriage, which is a load of rubbish. Which is what a lot of them think, because it's the easiest way, it's not the only way. And you know, I would I be willing at this stage to like support him? Overlooked very easily. Yeah, exactly, Yuli. You know, because obviously some people might think, oh right, well yeah, if you're expecting someone to move over there, Sandra, then it's only fair that you make some sacrifices for them. That seems fair, right? But when you put it into context, like, I'm not asking him to move over here, I just met him. Right, I just met him. I didn't even know him. He came in my inbox. Sorry, my keyboard doesn't work currently. Oh, bless you, Yuli. So, I did understand what you were saying. So yeah, so this guy, you know, I didn't even know him. We hadn't even had a conversation properly. Like, oh hi, how are you? You know, like, how are you? As in, tell me about yourself, right? And so he was already on about marriage, and that I would have to get married to him and support him, right? But I was in the wrong because I wanted someone to move over there. And of course, it was all my fault if I didn't make these sacrifices, because I should make as much sacrifices as the guy is, because it's not fair on the guy else, right? And this is just like very, very mind manipulating stuff. 1 is, I don't know the guy. 2 is, I haven't asked him to move over here, right? I said what I'm looking for in a relationship, right, is a guy to move over here. I didn't say I'm looking for you to move over here. I mean, ideally, actually, I want a guy in this country. I don't want a guy to even need to move, because I really don't want to do long distance relationship ever. Like, I'm talking about this video, you know, I said earlier, I can't do long distance relationships. And if you are going to do a long distance relationship, someone needs to move towards the other one. I've already stated in what I was, you know, I don't want marriage. I don't know if I put that in the post, actually. I said I wasn't looking for an Indian asexual guy. I think that's all I said at that particular point in the post. And it's like, just because he's Indian asexual doesn't mean to say he's the guy for me. But of course he comes... Sorry, I had to use this harder to use visual one to type this up. Oh, bless you. Lots of love. So, you know, so basically this is very mind manipulating, you know, because already he's turned it around on me, saying that I need to basically tell him that I'm going to marry him and support him to move over here so that we can be together. And it's like, I don't even know you. I didn't specifically ask for you to move over here. I didn't even say at that point that I wanted an Indian guy from India to move over to be with me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, like you're allowed to have needs in a relationship, right? You're allowed to have want someone to move over to live near you without, you know, without changing your life for them, because it's a need, but you don't expect them to do it. You don't push someone to do it. It's up to someone if they want to do that, right? If the right person comes along. Daily social anxiety. Oh, hi, nice to see you. Lots of love. And so, yeah, this was a very controlling guy, right? And then at the end it was like, oh, well, I'll be on my own forever now. Then it's like, oh, really? It's like, of course you're not going to be on your own. You're just going to chat up the next person online, probably say exactly the same thing to them, you know? You know, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be dictated to by a guy telling me to get married and support him, you know? I financially have to support myself in my own place. The landlord won't even let me have another guy or person in my home. This is a single occupancy flat, of which I've been here for years. I'm not going to move out for a guy and, you know, to be in a relationship when I'm very happy here. I've got everything I want here. I pay my own bills, pay my own food, pay my own council tax. You know, I like a relationship which is as least complicated as possible, as in they have their own bills, they have their own property, they have their own place, and then we stay over each other's places if we want to, as and when, if it's appropriate, right? Because then you get basically a base of your own, and if it doesn't work out, you've got your own place, which is very healthy. Plus, you know, you have like two homes in effect, because you can stay over each other's places, and so, you know, kind of like have two homes whilst having your own. So I think it's a really good thing. Some people love living separate, but I would never ever think it's a good idea to go and live with someone anyway straight away. And personally, in my experience, I think it's much better to like live separately so that you have your own place to fall back onto, and certainly before living with someone, so you know you're fully capable of depending on yourself. Because if you have someone move in with you and you're not used to being on your own, you can end up very codependent and financially dependent on them. And when you're financially dependent on them, that's when abuse is more likely to happen, because you're stuck in the same place as them. And you can, thanks, Julia, and you can, if you're stuck in the same place as them and they become abusive, you're then financially tied to that place unless you've got enough money to move out yourself, and that's a very difficult thing to do. And so what you don't want is to get into a situation where someone's moved in with you and they're not who you thought they were, or they get very controlling. I've had that in the past, and it's no good, you know. So if you're doing Yuli agrees fully, that's great. You know, if you are doing a long distance relationship, personally, I don't think you should move in together straight away. I think the person should move, like obviously travel to see you, or vice versa, and then move to live near you, but not with you. And then if you still want to live together after you spent some time living separately, then move in together if you're going to do that. I don't personally think it's a good idea to go from a foreign country, if you live in another country and hardly see each other, to just living together, right? And I actually don't think it's a very good idea in general. Right, I think you should know someone for a very long time first before you do that, because I think, you know, it's very important. There are exceptions, you know, I've said in this video, there are exceptions, you know, but, you know, my friend who's asexual, that's married to his asexual wife, I think they were together in a relationship for nearly 12 months before they actually were living with each other. Might have been longer than that. So, you know, it might have been 11 or 12 months, or it might have been a bit longer, you know, so you've got to understand that it needs time, you know, you need time to get to know someone. I've been living separately from a guy, and he's been really he seemed really nice, like my soulmate, really good friend, shared secrets. And then when he lived with me, he was like a completely different person, very controlling, very manipulative. But I was living with him then, and all the nice stuff he did for me, a lot of it just went away. You know, he wasn't rubbing my feet anymore. He wasn't cooking for me anymore. He wasn't doing that type of thing for me when I was living with him. But before, when I was just even when I was just his friend, I think he started doing stuff like that for me. And then it turned into a relationship, right? And so I knew this guy for about 8 months before I got with him. This is a guy I was in a relationship total for 8.5 years. And so, you know, I was friends with him before. 8 months is quite a reasonable time before getting into a relationship, I think, to be friends with someone. But, you know, he turned out to not be a good guy. And so I would always as well listen to what they say compared to how you feel. So there are telltale signs, you know, like I've been in this situation before where, you know, I thought some guy was being really romantic and really he was being possessive because he was a controlling guy. So, you know, like I would have a guy saying, oh, I'm really, you know, the guys will be like, you know, like oogling you or eyeing you up, and I'm kind of like a bit, you know, like concerned about that or something, or, you know, because you're all mine and stuff like that. And kind of like in romantic terms, when you're really young especially, you might think, oh, well, that's kind of nice that I'm his and kind of like his, you know, but you don't realise that it's not good because the guy's trying to own you. You're like a possession to him, and actually that's not a good thing. But when you are young and if you're insecure or lack self-love or both, if you've got a lack of self-worth, it might not be your fault you're like that. It might be the way you've been brought up or disrespected in the past, or you might have got other unhealthy relationships or friendships in your life, you know. So when you're like that, you know, you're more open to being vulnerable, and you're more like to think, if say for example you haven't been paid attention much to in your life, you were kind of like left out at school, maybe bullied, you were kind of like not got many friends, and then this person comes along and you're like, oh, you're all mine, I really love you, I adore you, you know, like, and they be a bit, you know, they be possessive basically. You don't realise that it's a bad thing because you're like, oh god, no one's really paid that much attention to me before, no one's wanted me to be theirs. That's such an honour, it feels so good because you think being someone's is good because no one else wanted you before, right? And so this is how psychologically it can feel good to you. You're like, oh my god, someone wants me, I'm theirs, they kind of like belong to me, I belong to them. And kind of this is like kind of a romantic notion and filling something that's not actually there within you that should be there, such as self-love, self-worth and respect. But when you're young, you don't really know these things as well, because you were looking at the romantic side of it, the thing that was lacking before you've got from this person. You're like, my god, this person understands me, they're giving me stuff I've never had in my life before, they're making me feel wonderful in ways that I can imagine. This is my ideal guy, or whatever gender it is, you know, I'm talking about guys, use an example because I'm only interested in guys. And so you come from a place of lack of like self-worth, lack of love, lack of self-esteem, but you just think this person gets you and understands you and they're giving you love that you've never had before, but you don't realise it's a toxic love, it's a controlling love, it's possessive love, it's an unhealthy love. Some may argue it's not love at all and it's addiction or possession, right? But you know, it's what happens, you know. And so you can only, when you come to self-love and you come to realise that the romance that you might feel in those moments and the kind of attachment to something you've never had before in your life that makes you feel good in a weird kind of sense, you know, you have to understand that your safety and well-being is paramount, and it's more important than the romantic feelings and the feeling that you got from this person that no one else can give you, which is actually filling a void in your life, which is actually very unhealthy for you, right? But you think it's a good thing because no one else gave you that before, you know. And so, you know, you don't really know all this for a long time. And sometimes you can only notice it when you look back at your past relationship. You can't notice it when you're in it, right? Because some people, like, when like I notice now on dating sites when this guy's like, oh, I'm dominant guy, I'm like, not for me then, you know. And it's like, you know, like the way they talk in some of their profiles, it's like they want to own a woman, they want to possess them, and it's like, no, a red flag, run, delete, block, you know. And so you've got to understand this. But you know, when you're a person, like I said, who has had a lack of attention, a lack of love, a lack of being needed in their life, and this person comes along going, oh, I need you, like a possession, like, oh god, I need you so much, it makes you feel good it makes you feel good. You think it makes you feel good. You don't really understand the underlying thing that's happening is they're trying to control and manipulate you. You just think, god, this person wants me. They kind of want to, you know, you don't think that the possessiveness is a bad thing. You're like, oh, this person wants me so badly. They want to kind of like, you don't really think of the word own, but it's kind of like you're their possession, and you kind of feel like great a bit that they are you're you know, you're that, you know, mean that much to them in their life that they want to kind of You don't think about the word own at the time, but that's what really it means, that, you know, that they've got you and they want you and need you that badly, you know. But like I said, it comes from a place of a lack of love and self-worth, and often something that was lacking before, you know. Like in the past, for example, I didn't used to have many friends. I was bullied, and so that's how it kind of was for me in the past, I guess. You know, like which is very revealing, you know. And I didn't realise that was toxic at the time. I didn't realise that was so bad, you know. But I do remember my ex telling me that they were worried about me going out somewhere to a work do or something, or some party or something, because they were worried that other guys would be looking at me. And I kind of thought that was sweet at the time, and oh, they really loved me that much. But I didn't realise it was a sign that this guy was very controlling and manipulative. I didn't know that at the time, because I was that type of person who wasn't really needed in the past. The only friends I had in the past used to be ones where it was all a one-sided friendship, whereas I was the one doing all the work, so I needed them more than they needed me. And of course, when you need people more than they need you, you become like a dispensable person to them, and so therefore you don't get the type of friendship and deep connection that you should be having that's healthy. You get this scenario where they could leave you at any given moment, and you feel like insecure, and because you don't have anything else in your life that's making you feel secure, so you kind of cling onto rubble, if you know what I mean. It's like a house that's falling down, and you're clinging onto bits of rubble because it's the only things you can get, like clinging onto breadcrumbs, really. And so that's the only way I can describe it, and it's very difficult. Like, I didn't know all this stuff back then. I couldn't see this stuff, you know. I just thought I loved the guy, he loved me, he kind of wanted to be with me all the time. It was kind of good that he was possessive. I kind of liked it. I kind of felt good that someone wanted me, where I didn't feel wanted as a child a lot of the time. And so, you know, like, I don't think I came from a bad place. I think you know, bad as in like, oh, I'm trying to, you know, like I'm trying to do that to myself, or trying to look for that type of person, or you know, like, because I didn't want to be controlled. Wasn't looking for someone to control me. I didn't realise what I was lacking in my own life meant that I would be prey for these type of guys. And back then it was probably the only way I was getting any type of love, and I knew that from a very early age. It was kind of like the only love I felt I could get was from guys, you know, and they ended up being bad guys for me, you know. And so that was really hurtful, but that is kind of the place I came from years ago. So it's kind of weird looking back on it now, you know. And it takes a lot of courage and strength to be able to see that type of thing and admit that to yourself, you know. It's not easy saying I was that type of person before, but it is true. And I've actually changed a lot. I wasn't so healthy myself back then, you know. I had some character traits that weren't so good. Attracted that type of person more, and so I changed myself considerably and drastically when I became single in 2011. The end, you know, November 2011, I became a person that, you know, like, tried to personally not date anyone for a good 12 months. I think it was 11 months actually when I started dating him. I wasn't actually fully over this guy till 18 months. It took me a year to 18 months to fully get over him. And so in 2013 was when I actually did the pattern changing course. You know, it's one of the best things I've ever done in my entire life. I would recommend it to anyone, everyone. I still have the coursework from it, so they give you these sheets and handouts. I've still got attached my wardrobe that you can't see. This Mac here is in a wardrobe. There's like something called your Bill of Rights, and I'm going to look away from the screen now because it's over there. So it's like, you have the right to be you. You have the right to put yourself first. This is all about boundaries and being assertive. You have the right to be safe. You have the right to love and be loved. You have the right to be treated with respect. Like, this is your human rights. So this is for people who've been in an abusive relationship, not realising what their human rights are, because their human rights are usually, you know, invalidated by the person you're with. They're made to, you know, you're made to think that you're not allowed to be like this, right? You have the right to be human but not perfect. You have the right to be treated with respect. You have the right to be... This is a very interesting one. You have the right to be angry and protest if you are treated unfairly or abusive by anyone. So years ago, I didn't even think it was good for a person to be angry at all. I thought no person's ever meant to be angry. So if you're angry, you're a bad person. But this isn't true, because like I said, it's the way you express that anger that's important. And, you know, you have to be able to deal with things that are negative in a relationship. You have to be able to talk about them, communicate about them, you know, and really, you know, be able to express them. And so you do actually have a right to be angry, but it's how you express it to the other person that's important. You have the right to your own privacy. So person shouldn't be like in everything. So I had this guy on, there's quite a few other ones as well. I had this guy who was meant to be asexual, and yeah, he became very controlling, because he changed when I said I wouldn't take my clothes off when I met him at a hotel and stuff like that. And you know, you do have a right to your own privacy. I think you have to be in a relationship with someone who's prepared to show you some of their stuff, like their photographs, for example. I wouldn't be with a guy who decided, oh, you can never see any of my photographs on my phone. I think if you're in a relationship, you know, you would share some of your photographs and stuff like that. And you shouldn't be with someone who's afraid to be seen with you on social media, or be connected to you, because they're usually married, want to pretend they're single, having an affair, stuff like that. So there's really big red flags. But, you know, they shouldn't be a scenario where a guy's got control of all your emails and your social media accounts, and they're going in your inbox and they're going in your phone, all that, because that is just controlling and possessive. I think it's fine if you're just sharing a few messages, maybe showing something of little bits of conversation. But again, if it's with your friends, the majority of that stuff's going to be private, and you shouldn't really be showing it to even a partner, you know, especially if it's not relevant to them. You know, because I have friends and I expect them to keep my stuff secret, you know, as much as possible, and vice versa, you know. So you know, like, but if I was in a relationship, you know, I would expect a guy to be fine about me seeing photographs on his phone and stuff like that, because he shouldn't have anything to hide, you know, and vice versa. You know, it's very interesting because you know, this guy that was supposed to be in a asexual guy, he got really funny about, like, if I was never going to be allowed to look at his phone ever, right? And then I found out shortly after that he had this woman best friend that he talks to loads that he never even talked to me about. Now, if nothing was dodgy going on, why didn't he just tell me about her? So that was really weird. And, you know, and it's like, and it's really weird. So he was kind of saying stuff about me being bad because I said that, you know, like, about us looking at, I said about something to do with his phone, about seeing a message from him or something, or, you know, like I saw a dating coach and they said, oh, they shouldn't be afraid of being with a guy shouldn't be afraid to show you his messages. And I think that's true to a certain extent, that you know, that you shouldn't be, you know, so long as, like, not private stuff really with your friends, you shouldn't be afraid to show your messages, some of your messages. But I think, you know, like, someone taking complete control of your account's wrong. Someone needed to see all your messages is wrong. You know, like, particularly, I mean, I don't personally usually ask to see a guy's messages, you know. I don't really think that's right. But, you know, I think it's fine to ask to see photographs and stuff like that. But I think if a guy's never prepared to show you messages and gets funny about it, it's just weird. Because if you're living with the person, especially, they might see your messages occasionally, you know, because you live together, or even if you're spending lots of time together. But, you know, like, you don't want someone taking over your Skype account, taking over your Facebook account, looking at all your messages, and stuff like that. That's just, like, obsession and possession, and it's just really unhealthy, you know. I wouldn't want a guy like that at all. But, you know, seeing each other's photographs and stuff like that, and occasional messaging is not really, you know, like I might say, oh, I'm messaging a friend at the moment, you know, like, that type of thing. But if they're not going to be seen on social media and stuff like that with you, it usually means they've got someone else on the side, or they don't want people to know they're with you, which is a, you know, red flag. Why wouldn't they be proud to be with you? And so that really isn't going to be healthy for you to be in a relationship with that type of person. And so I think you've really got to judge the situation at the time, you know. But you don't want someone controlling like that. Like I said, this guy who said he was asexual, he wanted to friend my friends, you know, and connect with all my friends on social media. Kind of wanted to be friends. He wanted to kind of take control of some of my business and start like working in it when I had not known him very long, and I kind of felt like he was trying to take over my life. And it's like, you know, like if I want to introduce my future partners to my friends, that's my business, you know, and yes, I should want to do that. But when you've only just got with the person already, they're trying to friend all the friends, particularly women friends, you know, it's kind of a bit of a red flag. And so yeah, and then when he's like, oh, but you know, I'll help you with your business, I'll do this and that, it might seem nice at first, but at the end of the day, if they're trying to connect with all your friends, if they're trying to like take over parts of your business, it's kind of like that's what they do, and they're trying to control you in some way and take over. And one of the things this guy said to me is I saw my cousin in the supermarket, and I said that I'd seen my cousin who was sat there, you know, stood there chatting in the aisle, and he got really funny about it, saying, oh, well, that's not very good. I hate people who stand in the aisle and start chatting like that. It gets in people's way. It's really bad. And he tried to make me feel really bad about speaking to my cousin who I hadn't seen for ages. And so, you know, that's very controlling, very manipulative. So again, you've got to watch out for all these things, you know. You've really got to judge for yourself. It's not always easy, right? And sometimes you might get the person being a bit odd with you occasionally, or out of character, because no one's perfect, you know. But you've just got to understand that you've got to look for the red flags over time, and you've got to have time to get to know someone. It's the only way you're really going to truly know them, you know. I mean, I've had friends that have come out with stuff like months or even years later that I never even knew about them, and I've known them for a long time, you know. So you've got to understand that a lot of people, they don't tell you everything. I tell quite a lot of things, more than a lot of people would, you know. But then I don't have anything to hide, you know. I am an open book. I have nothing to hide whatsoever, you know. And I have photographs on my phone that a future person can see. That was what I was going to say before I go. Is this particular guy who got me funny about if I ever saw any of his messages. Not that I actually asked to see his message, but I just said about it. And then he's like, oh, if you did that, I would like leave you, basically. There was a guy I met through karaoke. My friend did karaoke, and he was an asexual guy, actually. Not suitable for me. Wrong, you know, not compatible asexual. But he was a stranger to me. And I think he smoked, or his mate smoked. I can't be with a smoker anyway. I think he went out with his friend outside because his friend smoked. And he told me to look after his mobile phone for him. So basically, I had his mobile phone in my hand. So he was actually not caring whether I saw his messages or photographs or whatever. He was just openly trusting me with that, you know. And so I thought, for a stranger to be able to do that, but yet this so-called guy who said he was asexual, who was actually, I was in a very short-term, long-distance relationship with him for nearly a month. But when he started changing his personality, basically because I wouldn't take my clothes off when I met him in a hotel, that type of thing. You know, it kind of like he changed personalities. It was just horrible. And so, yeah, you got to be really careful about stuff like that. But yes, I thought, well, this asexual guy I've only just met, who I don't know, who's a stranger, you know, gave me his phone to look after, to completely trust me with this phone. Yet the other guy, who was supposed to be in a long distance relationship, like was saying, if you ever try and look at my message, or if you ever look at my messages or ask to look at my messages or whatever, I will, you know, just leave you. I thought clearly there's something dodgy there, you know. So, you know, I think you have to, you know, be, as in, like, you know, able to share information to a certain extent with your partner. You know, be able to share photographs and stuff with your phone, because I mean, you know, there shouldn't be any reason why there's any photographs they can't see, you know, unless you're seeing another person behind their back. You know, there shouldn't be any photographs that you can't show someone, you know. You know, unless you're going around taking nude photographs of your friends and weird stuff like that, which, why are you doing that anyway? You know what I mean? There shouldn't be anything like in photographs that the person can't see. So, you know, just judge the situation for what it is. You don't want someone who's going to completely take over your life, take over your social media, take it, you know, like, I wouldn't have anyone having access like that to my accounts. I've got all my own accounts myself, you know. It's like, even bank accounts I prefer to have separately. I've had one or two joint accounts in my past, but I always kept my own bank accounts as well. And I would urge you, you know, like, if you do get joint bank accounts, do not make them your main bank account. Because if you do split up, which I split up with both of those people I had joint accounts, one can just withdraw all the money. and the other gets none. So, you know, make sure that you put equal amounts of money in there if you're going to do it, and make sure you keep your own bank accounts as well. And do not go around giving people money from abroad and long distance, you know, just because, you know, they say, oh, I want to be in a relationship with you, but I need some money, bail me out and stuff like this. You know, that's ridiculous. They just after the money, you know, just don't be that type of person. I'm not saying there's not instances where you might buy them gifts and stuff like that. Give them gift vouchers or whatever like that. But, you know, if a person's coming online and they're asking you for money, they don't love you. They just want the money usually, right? They shouldn't be asking you for money. You know, so just be very aware. So I was saying earlier as well about asexualitic.com. I know a couple of people on there that got scammed, and they actually moved countries. They moved countries to be with a person, and the person turned out not to be asexual and to be a scammer. And literally one woman moved, and she had to move, was having to try and move back to her own country, because when she got there, this guy had kids, and he basically just wanted her for the money and to look after his kids. And it wasn't at all what she expected. It was like, oh yeah, I think he had 3 kids. And it's like, oh yeah, I've got these 3 kids. I just want you here to look after them and to give me money. Because he didn't work, as far as I remember from what she said. And she's like, oh God, now I'm looking to move back to my own country. You know, and so that was really difficult. And there was another guy who had a similar thing, and he moved over to be with this woman who she said she wasn't what she seemed. And so, you know, when he went over there, she didn't really have any time for him. She had her own life and wasn't even bothered about him, and he's moved over there. And no, actually, this guy hadn't moved over there. He went over to visit her. The woman had moved over there to be with the guy and was trying to move back to her own country. But this guy, I remember telling me now, that he said he hadn't actually moved over there, luckily, but he went to visit this woman. And when he went to visit this woman, rather than moving over there straight away, she didn't have any time for him. She was busy seeing other people. And so, yeah, he was glad he didn't move, so he didn't actually go. But he had a lucky, narrow escape. So, yeah, so you've got to be very, very careful, because some people online are not who you think they are. They're not who they say they are. You know, like, no guy should be afraid, for example, to show you his birth certificate or his passport. I've had guys in the past that I didn't trust that they would tell me the right date of birth, so I actually said, I want to see your driver's license. And they should have no problem with showing you ID like that. You know, it's something they'd show in a pub or a club or anything. They should have no problem. And if they've got a problem with that, they're hiding something. I found one guy was in trouble with the law, and that's why he didn't want me to see his birth stuff as well. You know, and he was a lot older than he said he was. He was like 10 years older than he said he was. So yeah, you've got to be really careful of stuff like this if you're going to do long distance. I mean, I would urge you to always proceed with caution. If you want to move to countries, you know, then do it with some sort of degree of logic to it, where you move, you know, you find a place yourself. You're not reliant on that person. You find a place yourself. You find a job yourself. You get yourself some income coming in, and you get stable over in your own place there. Then you can have a more healthy relationship with the person. You can see what they're like to be around on a weekly or daily basis, and you can just either grow from strength to strength or realise that, yeah, you can't do that. But before you even get to that stage, make sure you visit this person a lot. Make sure you like the country yourself. Make sure it's somewhere you want to live. There's no point in moving for someone else just to make them happy and think this is an ideal relationship, yet you don't even want to be in the city or country. Because if that happens, you'll end up resenting the person. You know, you should only move because you genuinely want to move. You might want to move to be with that person, but just imagine, could you stand being in that country if that relationship didn't work out? If the answer is yes, go for gold, because you've got nothing to lose then, have you? But if it's a case of like, I really wouldn't want to stay here, like, what contingencies have you got? Can you move back with your parents? Can you live with relatives? Right? If something doesn't work out, what contingencies have you got? Think logically, not just romantically or you know, infatuation wise. Think logically. Okay, so if I'm first of all, I've got to visit this person. I've got to go to the country and spend as much time as I possibly can, whether that's 1 week, 2 weeks, a whole month, as much time as I can. Maybe you want to get a tourist visa to start off with and spend, like, you know, 3 or 4 months, 6 months or whatever over there. Maybe get a summer job or something, you know, so you can truly get used to it. Or, you know, if you're studying and you want to do a master's degree, why not move to a country where your asexual love of your life is and go and study in their city, right? Instead of studying in your own country, if you've got that option, if your parents will pay for it anyway, for example, then go and study in that person's city. So therefore, you are also fulfilling your own needs, ambitions and dreams, and you'll make some friends at uni anyway, so you're always going to have someone over there at that time. And then plus you can get the luxury, if you like, of being with the person, seeing what it's like. And then you've kind of got, I mean, that to me would be an ideal scenario for a young guy to come, to do his study over here, do his degree or his masters or both over here, to come to my city, because my city's got one of the top universities in the country. And then he lives in his own student accommodation, whatever place he's got, he can fend for himself, take care of himself. Then he has a relationship with me. If it works out, good for both of us. If it doesn't, then, he's not lost anything, has he? Because he's going to have university friends. He's going to be doing stuff in university, like social gatherings. He's going to be, like studying it anyway. So he's going to get kind of the best of everything. And the place where I live in my city is amazing in terms of like, and places you can visit, the local places, the freedom you've got, the NHS care and everything else. So, for a guy coming over here, I think that's his ideal case scenario. But you know what I mean? Like, like go and explore the country, go and see the area that you're thinking about moving to, as well as the person you're thinking about being with. Go and see if you like it. If you like it, if you want to move anyway, you've got nothing to lose. If you think, I don't want to stay in this country, it's not for me, I don't like it, I don't feel comfortable, I'm going to move anyway, then why move to somewhere where you don't know anyone and you haven't even got a partner, but say you meet someone who's asexual who you think would be suitable for your relationship, you end up feeling a lot for them, why not move to be with them? Because it's less of a risk then, isn't it? But rather than moving in with them, like I said, get your own place. And if if you like the country anyway, it's not going to matter then, is it? You've got less to lose. You're not really risking much. It's what I call a logical risk. It's what I call a calculated risk. So there are risks that are kind of crazy, where you just move to another country, you move in with the person, you've only known them 6 weeks, for example, you've never visited their country. That's an illogical move. That's kind of like a real red flag and a danger. I'm not saying it'll never work out, but I'm saying it's not a good basis for a healthy relationship, right? I'm not, there are instances where things like that can work out, but in general, you don't want to be doing that, right? And so it's not very logical, is it? Really, so I've only known you 6 weeks. I don't know your faults. I don't know how we're going to get together on a daily, weekly basis. I don't know how this is going to, be over months, years. I kind of really shooting in the dark, it's not very healthy. Whereas if you get to move, get to visit them first, get on well with them, you should be doing loads of video calls as well. If you're going to start a long distance relationship, do not just do messaging, because a lot of the time people online can be not who they say they are. And if you're not video chatting with the person and then you're just meeting them in person, that's a danger. Always video chat with someone first, because if they're not who they say they are, for example, they're a lot older, which I've had guys doing that to me, they're a lot older than they say they are, then you're going to be able to see them. And also you can see a lot of their body language on camera. They're saying, oh, I love and adore you so much, but you start video chatting with them and they're there chatting, messaging their friends on their phone or looking the other way, not paying attention to you, and doing some really bad habits like picking their nose and stuff. I've actually been on a video chat with a guy where he's picking his nose. And I'm like, oh my God, And this is a guy who's had romantic feelings for me and stuff. I'm like, oh my God. He turned out to be controlling, so he's blocked from my life now. But yeah, so it's kind of like, you don't want to be getting with someone who's the wrong person for you. No one's going to be perfect for you, but just take calculated risks. Think, what have I got to lose? If I move to this person's country, am I going to lose a lot or am I going to gain a lot, right? And like I said, sometimes you can move out of somewhere, like you can move out of your parents and go for like 12 or 6 months or whatever. And then, have the option to move back. Now, some parents don't like that. They're like, no, once you've moved out, that's it. My parents are like that. They're like, once you've moved out, that's it. Stand on your own 2 feet, especially my mum's like that. Don't go back. That's kind of like, I think it's a bit strange for Indian, British culture. I think it's a bit strange for British culture. I've known loads of people that are like, they can go back and live with their parents whenever they want if things don't work out for them. They've always got that kind of thing to fall back onto. I don't have that. So I have to be super strong and tough by myself. And that's another reason why it's so important to live on my own, because once I've got everything sorted myself, my bills, where I live, I'm happy in my lifestyle, it's very essential that I stick to what I'm safe and happy with. And, you know, if a guy comes along that's the right guy for me to be in a relationship with, he'll just need to be, you know, suitable for my needs and lifestyle, basically, and enhance my life, not take anything away from it. So that's another thing I want to tell you is, if you're get into a relationship with anyone and they are making you more miserable than happy, and you're happier when you were single before, you know, and you just feel that, oh my God, my mental health deteriorates since being with this person. As much as I may love them, you know, I'm feeling more miserable, I'm not feeling as happy. And this can happen, particularly in long distance relationships. Going back to the beginning of this video, like I said, if someone's not prepared to move, you have to categorically have at least one person in that relationship who's going to move. Not in 3 years' time, not in 6 years' time, that's going to move. Actually set a date and move. And it's going to be making plans to actually come and see you in person, right? Without these plans, without these goals, without these things to work towards, the relationship will die off eventually. Because if you haven't both got goals to work towards together, you're not growing in the relationship. You're just stagnating. And eventually one person's going to get fed up with it, or you're just going to tear each other apart, and it's going to be like ripping your soul out. So please bear in mind everything I've said in this video. So, you know, so to give a quick recap is, if you're going, let me drink some water before I recap, before I go. So if you're going for a long distance relationship, you have to understand that you've got to have a lot more effective communication. You've got to discuss in the beginning of the relationship how much communication you're going to want and need. It's likely going to be every single day, several times maybe throughout the day. And you're going to have to be doing stuff like sharing photographs, sharing parts of your life with them, even when they're not there with you. There's going to be times as well when you might have some misunderstanding, because text communication can be misunderstood, right? You're not there to see the person, to see their body language, to see what context they've sometimes said this in, or what their mood was. So that can mean that you can have upsets and arguments more easily in that scenario, in which case you might have to schedule a video call of, you know, when you didn't really want to because you were seeing your friends or doing something else, but you need to speak to this person. You might have to phone them quickly, you know, and spend 10 minutes just saying, look, I've got to sort this out with this person, right? Because that's what a long distance takes. It needs a lot more effective communication. Things can get blown out of proportion a lot more quickly. Arguments can start over things, over texts that were misconstrued. So it's much better to have a lot of ongoing effective communication daily with the person. You need to, you know, be setting expectations from the beginning, like how much communication do you want? Do you want morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime text? What do you want? Like, how do you want to chat? Do you want to chat by text, audio, video? I recommend all three, and definitely video before you meet in person. You know, like who is going to move over to who. You've got to know this in the beginning. If no one is prepared to move, or neither of you are going to likely have the money, do not get into this relationship. It's going to be heartache and heartbreak. I know people who stayed in long distance relationships for like 4 years and they can't be with the person. They have no funds to move over to the person, and they just give excuses. Ideally, you should be looking to move to another person's country within 12 to 18 months, ideally, because you're more likely to go and do it then. And you don't want to keep putting it off. If you really want to be together, you know, like 12 months of separation from someone you really adore and love, if you want to be physically close to them, even cuddling them, is going to be a lot of heartache and pain for you. So you need to have plans for one of you to be moving over there, usually within 12 to 18 months, right? If that's not possible, then you need to be able to have other plans and set deadlines and times, you know, to be together. But there's a danger that the other person could start moving them the later it gets, because they get more comfortable where they are and they make excuses more and more, and it's just not on. It's going to break your heart, right? Don't get into a long distance relationship in the first place if you really can't hack it, right? I have an anxiety condition, so ideally I don't want to get into a long distance relationship anyway. Certainly not with someone from another country. It's just too anxiety inducing. I could possibly do long distance in the UK if, for example, the person was in London and they were able to drive to come and see me, something like that. But again, there's a lot of issues going on with that, because it's like like even on the train, it's like 3.5 hours. You've got to have the money to commute regularly to see them, or at least on set times. So maybe it's twice a month. But it's like, how often are you going to see that person? Who's going to come to whom? How much money do you need to set aside for that? Do you need to stay in a hotel? Could you stay with them in their place, in a separate bed or the same bed? Or, you know, like what's going to happen with that? You need to be sorting all these practical stuff out before you get into a permanent relationship with them, because You know, if you haven't sorted all this stuff out from the beginning, it's just heartache and pain and heartbreak, right? It's better to kind of have love feelings for each other or romantic feelings for each other in the beginning and realise you're not compatible, it's not going to happen, than fool yourself into believing that someone's going to come and really they've never got the funds. They're not likely to. They don't come from the background that you need them to come through to be well enough to have enough money. They don't have a job, or they've not got a job that's likely to pay anywhere near that. You know, their parents can't pay for them to come over there. And, you know, they really haven't got the funds, and it's not something that they're even looking at. So maybe they're saying they want to move to be near you, but they're not going on websites to try and find jobs. They're not actively and proactively searching for that. So they're not going on LinkedIn, or they're saying they're going on LinkedIn, but where's the evidence, right? You know, if someone wants to move, they need to be trying to find a job in the country. That means going to job sites, going on LinkedIn, you know, creating a profile, connecting with employers. You know, they need to be looking at accommodation. You know, if they're really interested in moving, they'll be saying, hey, you know, tell me some really good places near where you live, because I really want to move to live near you. So tell me the best, like, areas to live, the best places to live, you know, but not expect you to do all that research. So just tell them, you know, what areas are good areas, for example. You shouldn't be doing all the work for them. You shouldn't be there find them a job and find them a place to live and everything like this. That all shouldn't be on you, right? Because they're just kind of using you and being lazy. And if they're being lazy about it and not being proactive for themselves, what do you think that's going to be like going forward in a relationship with them? And if you're doing all the work, I would say they're not even really bothered about coming over to your country. It's too much hard work. If it's too much hard work to come over to your country, then they don't really want the relationship that badly in the first place, and they're likely not even ever going to come over there, even though they say they love and adore you so much and you mean the world to them. It's like, yeah, in fantasy land, in infatuation land, in feeling land, but in practical terms of being in a serious committed relationship and what it's going to take to do that, they just can't do it. They haven't got the strength to do it, or the courage or commitment, right? Usually it's one of three or all three. Some people have commitment issues. A lot of people say stuff because they want to be with you, but they can't actually practically do it. And so you have to be able to read this situation. You do not want to get into a situation which is heartbreak and heart pain for both of you, you know? You want to be able to be assured as much as possible that that person has the funds to come and move to you if the other person is moving to you, or you to them, and you actually want to move, and you actually take the steps to do it, and you're confident as much as possible that it will be a good move for you. It's something you want to do for yourself. Do not move if you're going to resent the person for your move. If you're going to come to another country and it doesn't work out, and you're going to say, well, I've moved for you, like, blah, 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 because that is not good, right? You don't want to put pressure on the other person saying, well, if I come to your country and it doesn't work out, it's all going to be your fault. This is not a healthy relationship, right? You know, if you are going to move to someone's country, you have to know there is a risk it might not work out. You want it to work out, but there's a risk. You cannot put pressure on the other person for it to work out, because then they will be feeling controlled and manipulated, and also it will be a lot of pressure on them for the relationship, and they might just do the opposite and think, I can't be in this relationship because it's too pressurizing, because they're feeling forced to be with you because you're coming over there, rather than seeing if things naturally work out. They're trying to force themselves to work out, and then they come up with a lot of uncertainty because they don't know you that well in person, because you've not actually spent much time together in person, because it's been a long distance relationship before. And so therefore you're like kind of like, you know, like the person's feeling like, oh my God, I want them to come over and be in a relationship with me. But, you know, if I feel like they've got to be the one and I can't get out of it if they're not right for me, then it's just going to not feel good. That person who's wanting the other person to come over is going to have second thoughts. The person who's coming over is going to feel like that. They might start resenting them. And this is not a healthy relationship. It's based on two people feeling pressurized, and it's not good. So the ideal case scenario is you have someone in the relationship who already decided that ideally they'd want to move from their country if a person came along. And so they're already kind of prepared for that as well. Some people don't prepare. They're just saying it in fantasy. Oh yeah, I'd love to move. I really would. And they don't mean it. And it's sad. I've met these type of people, right, who say they'd like something, but they've never actually practically thought about it. They've never thought about what a relationship would like on a day-to-day basis. They've not thought what their expectations is going to be like. They've not thought things through as to what a loving, healthy, happy, committed relationship would look like on a daily basis. They haven't decided how much communication they need with the person. They haven't even decided if they want marriage or kids, which is worse, because you should be getting to know whether they have all these deal breakers or not, right? Deal breakers are something that you cannot be compromising on your relationship. So, for example, I don't want kids ever. I can't have someone in a relationship with me who in 20 years' time or 10 years or 5 years' time decides they want children. That wouldn't work for me. So I need to be sure that the guy, if he's moving to be with me, is not going to want kids in the future, because it's a waste of frigging time being together, right? It's a waste of time me being with a sexual guy if he wants sex. If he's going to have an affair, don't be with me. There's no point. It's a waste of time. There was someone Facebook dating the other day, and I said about sex. If you need sex in a relationship, we wouldn't be suitable. He just went silent on me. I'm saying, so I guess that means that you need sex in a relationship, in which case it's best not to waste each other's time. You know, I cut to the chase. There's no point in wasting your life and time with the wrong person, because the right person will never come along. You'll be stuck with someone who's not right for you and incompatible for you. Why? When there's thousands of people in the world. And it's better to be single than with the wrong person, right? Anyway, I'm going to conclude this video for now, because I think I've given you a lot of information, some of which you might need to go back through this video to see if you've missed it, right? But I thank you for being here. Thank you to Yuli, to Stevie, and to everyone else that's joined in. I know there's been some other people, so if I've missed your name out, I do apologise. There was one that said anxiety in their title of their YouTube name, so I appreciate you all being here. I know some of you have been watching me for a very long time, and I love you all dearly as always, and I'm going to see you on the next video live stream. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe and hit that bell icon so you do get notified of every time I go live. Like now, I'll post a new video. If you like the discussion, tune in more for more episodes. And as always, you can ask me anything you want in chat about asexuality and anything to do with asexual dating, relationships, whatever you want. And when I'm not live streaming, feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. I might make another video around the topic you're talking about, or I might just reply to you. Sometimes I do both, but I always reply to as many comments as I possibly can, providing YouTube show them to me, which most of the time they do, but sometimes they decide to cut people's comments without me having any say in it. So if that happens to you, I'm sorry, but most of the time lately it seems like comments are coming through now. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you are in a long distance relationship and it's being successful, please share it in the comments below. I love to hear success stories. There is one person that has been in a long distance relationship for 3 years. They were in a group sharing that the other day, but they said it's very difficult because they can't physically, give affection to the person. That's really hard, and they can't physically be with their person at the moment, but they are looking to move. So hope it works out for them, because I love a real true love asexual story. Real true love story is amazing. And just to leave you on a final note, if you feel you deeply love someone, don't wait forever. Just move and take the risk if you want to move anyway, because it's better to take the risk than live with regret your whole life. And if you're a person that doesn't want to be on their own their whole life, and you do want a serious committed relationship, specifically with an asexual person, and the partner of your dreams is in another country or in another town or city or country, do seriously think about moving. Usually one person is going to have to move. You're either going to have to be a mover or find someone who moves. One or the other. If you're flexible for both, good for you. Never ever give up the opportunity of true happiness. If you believe that that person is the love of your life, go and be with them, because the regret is going to be far worse than having tried, even if it doesn't work out. Alright? Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you for now. Lots of love. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye. Bye.